Clarel, Part 4, Bethlehem, Canto 1, In Saddle. Of old, if legend truth aver, with hearts that did in aim concur, three mitred kings, Amarian, Apuleius, and Damazon, by miracle and cassock met, an Indian city, bards and fur, this prompted by the vision yet. To find the newborn lord nor heir, westward their pious feet they set, with gold and frankincense and myrrh, nor failed they, though by deserts vast, and voids and menaces they passed, they failed not, for a light was given, the light and pilotage of heaven, a light, a lead, no longer won, by any now whose seekers are, or fable is it, but if none, let man lament the foundered star. And Kedron's pilgrims in review, the wilds receive those guests anew. Yet ere the manger now to win, their desert march they re-begin. Belated leaving Saba's tower, reverted glance they grateful throw, nor slight the abbot's parting dower, whose benedictions with them go. Nor did the center of the isle from friendly cheer refrain, though lax. Our Lady of the Vines beguile your travel and bedew your tracks. Blithe wishes, which slim mirth bestow, for awe with chill at heart they mind, two now forever left behind. But as men drop, replacements rule, though fleeting be each part assigned, the eternal ranks of life keep full. So here, if but in small degree, recruits for fallen ones atone, the Arnaut and pilgrim from the sea, the muster joining also one, in military undress done, a stranger quite. The Arnaut rode, for escort mere his martial stud. A brother seemed as strong as he, as brave in trappings and with blood, as proud in equal gravity, reserving latent metal. Good to mark the rider in his seat, tall, shapely, powerful, and complete. A lean, too, in an easy way, like Pisa's tower confirmed in place, nor lacking in subordinate grace. Of lighter beauty, truth to say, this horseman seemed to wave command, abeyance of the bridle hand. But winning space more wide and clear, he showed an ostentation here. How but a pulse conveyed through rain could thrill and fire or a prompt detain? On dappled steed in kilt snow white, with burnished arms refracting light, he orbits round the plodding train. Jalea in quiet seat observes, 'tis little from his poise he swerves. Sedate he nods as he should say, rough road may tame this holiday of thine, but pleasant to look on. Come, that's polite, for on the wing, or in suspense of curveting, Chiron salutes the emir's son, meantime remiss with dangling sword, upon a cloistral beast but sad, a Saba friar's befitting pad. His own steed having sprained a cord, left now behind in convent ward. The plain-clad soldier, heeding none, though marked himself in neutral tone, maintained his place, his shoulders lithe, were long sloped and yet ample too, in keeping with each limb and thew. Waist flexile as a willow withal a slouched reserve of strength, as in the pard's luxurious length, the cheek high-boned of copperous show, enhanced by sun on land and seas, long hair much like a Cherokee's, curving behind the ear in flow, and veiling part a saber scar, slant on the neck a livid bar, nor might the felt hat hide from view. One temple pitted with strange blue, of powder burn, of him you'd say, a veteran no more, but nay. Brown eyes, what reveries they keep, sad woods they be where wild things sleep. Hereby and by yet other sign, to Rolf and Clarel part and vine, the stranger stood revealed confessed, a native of the fair southwest. Their countryman, though of his own, varied in nature from their own. A countryman, but how estranged, nor any word as yet exchanged, with them but yester evening's hour. Then first he came to Saba's tower, and saw the Epirot aside, in conference and words supplied, touching detention of the troop, destined to join him for the swoop over Jordan, but the pilgrims few. knew not hereof, not yet they knew, but deemed him one who took his way, eccentric in an armed survey of Judah. On the pearl-gray ass from Siddim riderless, alas, rode now the Timoneer sedate, jogging beneath the Druz's lee, as well he might, instructed late, what perils and lack of convoy be. A freighter feeling of the sea influenced Rolf and made him take solace with him of salt romance, albeit Agath scarce did wake, to fill requital chill perchance, derived from years of or diffidence. However, in friendly way, Rolf plied one-sided chat, as on they ride and over the ridge begin to go, a parting glance they turn and lo, the convent's twin towers disappear, engulfed like a brig's mass below submerging waters. Thence they steer, upward anew in lane of steeps, ravine hewn out as 'twere by sledges, and walled from ledges unto ledges, and stepwise still each rider creeps, until at top their eyes behold Judea and highlands far unrolled. A horseman so in easier play, wheeling aloft, so travelers say, up the moor's tower may outlook again, from saddle over Seville's plain, but here twixt tent-lapped hills they see, northward a land immovably haggard and haggish, specked gray-green, pale tint of those frilled lichens lean, which on a prostrate pine ye view, when fallen from the banks of grace. Down to the sandpits sterile placed, blisters supplant the beads of dew, canker and palmer worm both must, famished have left those fields of rust, the rain is powder, land of dust, there few do tarry, none may live, save mad, possessed, or fugitive, exalted in a cursed estate, like Naaman in his leprous plight, haughty before Elisha's gate, show the blanched hills, all now alight, upon the Promethean ledge, the Druse stands by the imminent edge, peering and rein in hand, with head over her master's shoulder laid, the mare to gaze nor feared a check, though leaning half her loathsome neck, yet lightly as a swan might do, an arm Jalea unfolding stretched, while sighs the sensitive creature fetched, as even that waist to sorrow moved, instinctive, so to take the view. See man and mare, lover and loved, slant palm to brow against the haze. Meantime the salt one sent his gaze as from the masthead over the pale expanse, but what may eyes avail? Land lone as seas without a sail, wreck ho the wreck. Not unamazed, they hear his sudden outery crazed, or subject yet by starts dismayed, to flighty turns for friars said, much wandered he in mind when low, but never Agath heeded them, forth did his levelled finger go, and fixing pointed, see ye see, way over where the grey hills be, yonder, no, there that upland dim, wreck, ho, the wreck, Jerusalem. Keen-sighted art thou, said Jalea, confirming him, aye, it is there. Then Agath, that excitement gone, relapsed into his quiet tone. Canto 2, The Ensign. Needs well to know the distant sight, like Agath who late on the way from Joppa here had made delay, ere if unprompted thou aright, mayest single Zion's mountain out, from kindred summits round about, abandoned quarry mid the hills, remote as well one's dream fulfills, of what Jerusalem should be, as that vague heap whose neutral tones blend in with nature's helplessly. Stony metropolis of stones, but much as distance shows the town, erst glorious under Solomon, appears now in these latter days to languid eyes, through dwelling haze, the city St. John saw so bright, with sardonyx and ruby, gleam no more like Monte Rosa's height, thy towers, O New Jerusalem? To Patmos now may vision steal, lone crag where lone the ospreys wheel, such thought or something near akin, touched Clarel and perchance might win, to judge them by their absence, ere others at hand, but not of these, the Illyrian, bold, impatient stare, he random flung then like a breeze, which fitful rushes through the glen. Over clansmen low, Prince Charlie's men shot down the ledges, while the clang of sabers against the stirrup rang, and clinked the steel shoe on the stone. His freak of gallantry and cheer, of barbarous escort ending here. Back for the stronghold dashed he lone. When died the din, it left them more becalmed upon that hollow shore. Not slack was ocean's wrinkled sun, and study of the mountain town, much like himself, indeed so gray, left in life's waste to slow decay. For index now, as he stretched forth his loose-sleeved arm in sailor way, pointing the bearings south and north. Derwent, arrested, cried, "Dost bleed?" Touching the naked skin, "Look here, a living fresco." And indeed, upon the forearm did appear a thing of art vermeil and blue, a crucifixion in tattoo, with trickling blood drops strange to see above that emblem of the loss. Twin curving palm bows draping met, in manner of a canopy, over an equi-limbed a small cross, and 3 tri-spiked and sister crowns. And under these a star was set, and all was tanned and toned in browns, and chapel airts which knew the mass, a mullioned window's umber glass, dyed with some saintly legend old, obscured by cobwebs this might hold. Some likeness to the picture rare, on arm here webbed with straggling hair. Leave out the crucifixion's hint, said Rolfe. The rest will show intent. The ensign, palms crossed diadems, and star the sign Jerusalem's. Coeval with King Baldwin's sway, skilled monk in sooth ye need have sought. In Saba, quoth the sea sage, nay, sketched out it was one Christmas day. Off Java Head, little I thought, a heedless lad scarce through youth's straits. How hopeful, on the wreckful way. What meant this thing which here ye see, the bleeding man upon the tree? Since then I've felt it, and the fates. Ah, yes, sighed Derwent, yes, indeed. But 'tis the ensign now we heed. The stranger here his dusk eye ran, in reading sort from man to man. Cleric to sailor, back again. But, shipmate, Derwent cried, tell me, how came you by this blazonry? We seamen, when there's naught to do, in calms the straw for hats we plait, or one another we tattoo, with marks we copy from a mate, which he has from his elders ta'en, and those from prior ones again. And few, if any, think or reck, but so with pains their skin to deck. This crucifixion, though by some a charm is held 'gainst watery doom. Comrades, said Rolfe, 'tis here we note, down-handed in a way blindfold, a pious use of times remote. Ah, but it dim grows, and more dim, the gold of legend, that fine gold, washed in with wine of Bethlehem, this ensign in the ages old, was stamped on every pilgrim's arm by grave practitioners elect, whose calling lacked not for respect. In Zion, like the sprig of palm, token it was at home that he, which board had kneeled at Calvary. Nay, those monk soldiers, helmet crowned, whose effigies in armed sleep lie stone in the stony temple round in London, and to verify them more, with carved greaves crossed, for sign of duty done in Palestine, exceeds it, pray conjecture fair. These may have borne this blazon rare, and not alone on standard fine, but pricked on chest or sinewy arm, pledged to defend against alarm his tomb for whom they ward. But see, from these mailed Templars now the sign, losing the import and true key, descends to boatswains of the brine, Clarel reposing there aside, by secret thought preoccupied. Now as he inward chafe would shun, a feigned quick interest put on the import of these marks. Tell me, come, come, cried Derwent, dull ye bide, by palm leaves here are signified, Judea as on the Roman gem, the cross scarce needs a word agree. The crowns are for the Magi 3. This star, the star of Bethlehem. One might have known and fell anew in void relapse. Why so blue? Derwent again and rallying ran, while now for Bethlehem we aim. Our stellar friend the post should claim of guide. We'll put him in the van. Follow the star on the tattooed man. We wise men hear, what's that? A gun. At distance fired, startles the group. Around they gaze, and down and up. But in the wilds they seem alone. Long time the echo sent its din. hurled round about and out and in. A football tossed from crag to crag, then died away in ether thin, died as they dimmed, yet did but lag, for all abrupt one far rebound, gave pause that over the hush was crowned. We loitered, Derwent said in tone, uneasy, come shall we go on? Wherefore the saturnine demands, toward him they look, for his eclipse, there gave way for the first, and stands the adage old that one's own lips proclaim the character a gun's man's voice, sincerest one. Blench, we too have assurance here in the waist that kind is near. Eyes settle on his scars and view both warp and burn the which events, experience of the thing he hints. Nay, hark, and all turn round anew. Remoter shot came duller there, the are not and but fires in air. Jalea averred his last adieu, by chance directed here in thought. Clarel upon the warrior hot. Low muse the rowel of thy spur, the robe rips a philosopher. Not reckest thou of wisest book? The creeds thou starest down with a look, and how the worse for such wild sense. And where is wisdom's recompense? And as for heaven, O heavens enlarge, beyond each designated marge, Valhalla's hall would hardly bar. Welcome to one whose end need be, in grace and grief of harnessed war, to sink mid swords and minstrelsy, so willful, but 'tis loss and smart. Clarel, in thy dissolving heart wilt form anew Vine's watchful eye, while none perceived where bent his view. Had fed on Agath, sitting by, he seemed to like him, one whose print the impress bore of nature's mint. Authentic man of nature true, if simple not, that slid between him and the elemental scene, unless it were that thing indeed, uplooming from his ancient creed, yet that but deepen might the sense of awe and serve dumb reverence, and resignation anywhere, ask vents here now to converse led in those far regions strange or rare, where thou hast been, may aught compare with Judah ere? Sooth, sir, he said, some chance comparison I've made in mind between this stricken land and one far isle forever banned. I camped on in life's early days, I view it now but through a haze. Our boats I view reversed turned down for shelter by the midnight sea. The very slag comes back to me. I raked for shells but found not one. That harpy seahawk, him I view, which pouncing from the red coal drew our hissing meat, we laughing nigh, an instant's dash, and with it flew to his sea rock, detached his cry, then sent to mock the marl we threw. I hear, I see, return those days, again but 'tis through deepening haze, how like a flash that life is gone, so brief the youth by sailors known. But tell us, tell, now others cried, and groped them as by hearthstone wide, the timonier at hazard thrown, with men of order not his own, evinced abashment, yes, proved shy. They urged, and he could but comply, but more of clearness to confer, less dimly to express the thing, rude outlined by this mariner, license is claimed in rendering, and tones he felt but scarce might give, the verse essays to interweave.
Clarel, A Poem and Pilgrimage in the Holy Land, by Herman Melville. Part 4, Section 3. The Island. In waters where no charts avail, where only fin and sprout ye see, the lonely spout of hermit whale, God set that isle which haunted me. There clouds hang low, but yield no rain, forever hang, since wind is none, or light, nor ship boy's eye may gain. The smoke-wrapped peak, the inland one, volcanic, this within its shroud, streaked black and red, burns unrevealed. It burns by night, by day the cloud. Snows laden all, and dull and scaled. The beach is cinders with the tide. Salt creek and ashly inlet bring more loneness from the outer ring of ocean. Pause he made and sighed. But by the way across the marl, a broken field of tumbled slabs, like ice cakes frozen in a snarl, after the break-up in a sound, So when the thicket's upper ground, where silence like a poniard stabs, since there the low throb of the sea nor heard is, and the seafowl flee far off the shore all the long day, hunting the fly-fish their prey, haply in bush ye find a path. Of man or beast it scarce may be, and yet a wasted look it hath, as it were travelled ceaselessly, century after century. The rock in places much worn down, like to some old kneeling stone before a shrine. But naught's to see, at least naught there was seen by me, of any moving, creeping one. No berry do those thickets bear, nor many leaves. Yet even there, some sailor from the steerage den put sick ashore, alas, by men, who weary of him thus abjure the way may follow in pursuit of apples red, the homestead fruit he dreams of in his calenture. He drops, lost soul, but we go on. Advance until in end be won the terraced orchard's mysteries, which well do that imp isle beseem, paved with jet blocks those terraces, the surface rubbed to unctuous gleam by something which has life you feel, and yet the shades but death reveal. For under cobwebbed cactus trees, white by their trunks, what hulks be these, which like old skulls of Anax are set round as in a Golgotha? But list, a sound, dull it booms, dull as the jar in vaulted tombs, when urns are shifted with amaze into the dim retreats ye gaze. Lo, 'tis the monstrous tortoise drear of huge humped arch. The ancient shell is trenched with seams where lichens dwell, or some adhesive growth and sear. A lumpish languor marks the pace, a hideous harmless look with trace of hopelessness. The eyes are dull, as in the bog the dead black pool. Penal his aspect, all is dragged, as he for more than years had lagged, a convict doomed to bide the place, a soul transformed for earned disgrace, degraded and from higher race. Ye watch him so woe begone. Searching he creeps with laboring neck, each crevice tries, and long may seek. Water he craves where rain is none, water within the parching zone, where only dew of midnight fall, and dribbling lodge in chinks of stone. For meat the bitter tree is all, the cactus, whose nipped fruits is shed on those beached skull-like husks below, which when by life inhabited, crept hither in last journey slow, after 100 years of pain, and pilgrimage here to and fro, for other 100 years to reign, in hollow of white armor so, then perished piecemeal. You advance, instant, more rapid than a glance. Long neck and forelegs are drawn in, letting the shell down with report upon the stone. So falls in court the chattering buckler with a din. There leave him, since for hours he'll keep that feint of death. But for the isle, much seems it like this barren steep, as here few there would think to smile. So paraphrased in lines sincere, which still similitude would win, the sketch ran of that timoneer. He ended, and how passive sate nature's own look, which might recall dumb patience of mere animal, which better may abide life's fate than comprehend. What may man know? Here pondered Clarel. Let him rule, pull down, build up, creed, system, school, and reason's endless battle wage, make and remake his verbiage. But solve the world? Scarce that he'll do. Too wild it is, too powerful. Since this world then can baffle so our natural harbor, it were strange if that alleged, which is afar, should not confound us when we range in reverie where its problems are. Such thoughts, and can these even be mine in fount? Did Derwent true divine upon the tower of Saba? Yes, hinting I too much felt the stress of Rolf, or whom, green and unsure, and in attendance on a mind poised at self-centre and mature, do I but lack it behind. Yea, here in frame of thought and word, but where the cast close of my Lord.
Canto 4, An Intruder. Quiet Agath with a start just then shrieked out, abhorrent or in fright, disturbed in its pernicious den amid dry flints and shards of blight, a crabbed scorpion, dingy brown, with nervous tail slant upward thrown, like to a snake's wroth neck and head, dilating when the coils unmade before the poor affrighted clown, whose foot offends it unbeknown, writhing, faint crackling like wires spring, with anguish of the poisonous bile, inflaming the slim duct the while, in act of shooting toward the sting. This the unblessed small evil thing, 'tis this they mark, wriggling in rage, fearless, and with ill menace strange in such a minim. Derwent rose, and Clarel, Vine and Rolf remained at gaze, the soldier too, and Druse. Cried Rolf, while thus they stood enchained, O small epitome of devil, wert thou an ox, couldst thou thus sway? No, disproportionate is evil in influence. Evil, do I say? But speak not evil of the evil. Evil and good they braided play into one cord. While they delay, the object vanished. Turning head toward the salt one, Derwent said, The thing's not sweet, but why start so, my good man, you that frequent know the wonders of the deep? He flushed, and in embarrassment kept dumb, but Rolf here to the rescue pushed. Men not deemed craven will succumb to such an apparition. Why, soldiers that into battle marching, elastic pace with instep arching, sailors, and he's a sailor nigh, who out upon the jib-boom high, at world's end in the midnight gale, and wrestle with the thrashing sail, the while the spirit spar like a javelin flies slant up from thundering seas to skies electric. These I've known one start, seeing a spider run athwart. In commonplace here lightly blew across them through the desert air a whiff from pipe that Belek smoked. The Druse his sleek mare smooth bestroked, then gave a sign. One parting view at Zion blurred, and on they fare.
Canto 5 of The Stranger. While Agath was his story-telling, ere yet the ill thing worked surprise, the officer with forest eyes still kept them dwelling, somber dwelling, on that mild merman gray, his mind. In part was that of one who tries something outside his own routine, of memories all too profuse, in personal pain monotonous, and yet derived he little here, as seemed to soothe his mind austere. With deep impressions uneffaced, at chance allusion at the hint, that the dragged tortoise bore the print of something mystic and debased. How glowed the comment in his eyes, no cynic fire sarcastic, nay, but deeper in the startled sway of illustrations to surmise. Ever on him they turned the look, while yet the hearing not forsook. The salt seer while narration ran, the desert march resumed in thought. They dwelled till Rolf the Druse besought, if he before had met this man, so distant though a countryman, by birth, why yes, had met him, see, drilling some tawny infantry, in shadow of a Memphian wall, white-robed young conscripts up the Nile, and afterward on Jaffa beach, with Turkish captains holding speech, over some cannon in a pile, late landed with the conic ball, no more the Druse let fall. If more he knew, thought Rolf, I me, poor freedom can it be? A countryman's a refugee. What maketh him abroad to roam, sharing with infidels a home? Is it the immense charred solitudes, once farms and chimney stacks that rain, war burnt upon the houseless plain of hearthstones without neighborhoods? Is it the wilds whose memories own more specters than the woods bestrown, with Varus's legions mossy grown? Is it misrule after strife and dust from victors' heels? Is it disgust for times when honor's out of date, and serveth but to alienate? The usurping altar doth he scout the Parsi of a sun gone out? And this may all this mar his state, his very virtues in the blench, and violence of fortune's a wrench, alas, serve but to vitiate. Strong natures have a strong recoil, whose shock may wreck them or despoil. Oh, but it yields a thought that smarts, to note this man our new world bold had fain improved upon the old, but the hemispheres are counterparts. So inly Rolf and did incline, in briefer question there to vine, who could but answer him with eyes, opulent in withheld replies, and hear without a thought to chide, feeling the tremor of the ground, reluctant touching on the wound, unhealed yet in our mother's side, behooveth it to hint in brief the rankling thing in Unger's grief. For bravest grieve that evil day, black in the new world's calendar, the dolorous winter ere the war, true bridge of sighs, so yet 'twill be esteemed in riper history, sad arch between contrasted eras, the span of fate, that evil day, when the cadets from rival zones, traditions' generous adherers, their country's pick and flower of sons, abrupt were called upon to act, for life or death nor brook delay, touching construction of a paper pact with points abstruse, as theologic ones profuse, and matter for an honest doubt, and which in end a stubborn knot, some cut but with the sword that day, with its decision yet could sway. Unger and plunging thoughts excite, reading and reverie imped his pain, confirmed and made it take a flight, beyond experience and the reign of self, till in a sort the man grew much like the Pamphylian, who dying, as the fable goes, in walks of Hades met with those, which though he was of sage of worth, did such new pregnancies implant. Hadean lore he did recant, all science he had brought from earth. Herewith in Unger, though ensued a biased bitterness, a strain, much like an Indian's hopeless feud, under the whites' aggressive reign. Indians the word, nor it impeach, for overpointedness of speech. No, let the story rearward run, and its propriety be shown. Up Chesapeake in days of old, by winding banks whose curves unfold, cape after cape in bright remove, steered the ship ark with her attendant dove, from the nonconformist zeal or bile, which urged inflamed the civil check, upon the dreaded popish guile, the new world's fair flowers and dews, welcome the English Catholic, like sheltering arms the shores expand, to embrace and take to heart the crews, careworn, sea-worn, and tempest-tanned. Devout they hail that harbor green, and mindful of heaven's gracious queen, and Britain's princess, name it Maryland. It was from one of Calvert's friends, the exile of the verse descends, and gifts brave gifts and martial fame, one under Tilly's great command, that sire of after-sires might claim. But heedless in the Indian glade, he wedded with a wigwam maid, transmitting through his line far down, along with touch and lineaments, a latent nature which events developed in this distant sun and overrode the genial part, an Anglo brain but Indian heart, and yet not so, but Unger knew, and Freca's forest name alone retained he now, that instinct true, which tempered him in years bygone, when spite the prejudice of kin and custom he with friends could be, outspoken in his heart's belief that holding slaves was aye a grief, the system and iniquity in those who plant it and begin, while for inheritors, alas, who knows, and let the problem pass. But now all that was over, gone. Now was he the self-exiled one, too steadfast. Wherefore should be lent the profitless high sentiment, renounce conviction in defeat, pass over, share the spoiler's seat, and thrive, behooves thee else turn cheek to fate with wisdom of the meek, wilt not? Unblessed then with the store of heaven, and spurning worldly lore, astute, eat thou thy cake of pride, and henceforth live on unallied, his passion that muse never said, and his own pride did him upbraid, the habit of his mind and tone, tenacious touching issues gone, expression found, nor all amiss, and thing he'd murmur, it was this: who abideth by the dead, which ye hung before your Lord, steadfast who, when all have fled, tree and course abhorred, who drives off the wolf the kite, bird by day and beast by night, and keeps the hill through all. It is Rizpah, true as one, unto death, nor then will shun, the seven throttled and undone to glut the foes of Saul, that for the past and for the surge, reactionary, which years urge, elating and elate, do they mount them in their pride. Let them wait a little, wait, for the brimming of the flood brings the turning of the tide. His lyric, yet in heart of hearts, perchance its vanity he knew, at least suspected what to do. Time cares not to avenge your smarts, but presses on, impatient of review. Canto 6, Bethlehem. Over uplands now toward eve they pass, by higher uplands tinged with grass. Lower it crept as they went on, grew in advance and rugged the ground. Yea, seemed before these pilgrims thrown, to carpet them to royal bound. Each rider here in saddle seat lounges relaxed and glads his sight. Solomon whinnies those small feet of Czar tread lightly and more light. Even a gas ass, the awakened head, turns for a nibble, so they sped, till now Jalea turns short aside, ascends and by a happy brink, makes halt and beckons them to ride, and there with him at pleasure drink. A prospect good below serene, in olive yards and vineyards fair, they view a theater pale green, of terraces which stair by stair, rise toward most venerable walls, on summits twin and one squared heap, of buttress masonry based deep, adown the crag on lasting pedestals, though on that mount but towers convene, and hamlet none nor cot they see. They cannot choose but know the scene, and Derwent's eyes show humidly, what other hill? We view it here, blessed in story and heart cheer. Hail to thee, Bethlehem of Judea! O look, as if with conscious sense, here nature shows meet reverence. See at the sacred mountain's feet, how kneels she with her fragrance sweet, and swathes them with her grasses fair. So Mary with the spikenard shed a lowly love and bowed her head, and made a napkin of her trailing hair. He turned but met no answering eyes. The animation of surprise had vanished strange, but they were dumb. What wayward afterthought had come? Those dim recurrings in the mind, sad visitations ill-defined, which led the trio erst that met upon the crown of Olivet. Nehemiah's proffer to decline, when he invited them away to Bethany, might such things sway? Even these by Bethlehem, the sign Derwent respected, and he said no more, and so his spirit shrunk. Over the placid hills they tread, and win the stronghold of the monk. Canto 7, at table. As shipwrecked men adrift whose boat, in wartime on the houseless seas, draws nigh to some embattled hull, with pinnacles and traceries, grim abbey on the wave afloat, and mark her bulwarks sorrowful, with briny stains and answering mine, and Cenobite dumb discipline, and homely uniform of crew, peering from ports where cannon lean, or pacing in deep galleries far, black cloisters of the god of war, and hear a language which is new or foreign. So now with this brand, who after desert rovings win the fort monastic close at hand, survey it, meditate it, see through vaultings the girt capuchin, or lists his speech of Italy. Up to the arch the graybeard train of Bethlehemites attend, salute, and in expectancy remain at stand, their escort ending here. They wait the recompense and fruit, 'tis given, and with friendly cheer, parting they bear a meed beyond the dry price set down in the bond. The bonus Derwent did suggest, saying they're old of all sweet food, not they take, and so cheers their blood. As ruddy coin it pads the vest, the lex abides true as is steel, to noble pilgrims which such largesse deal. While these now at refection sit, Rolf speaks, provided for so well, much at our ease methinks we dwell. Our merits guerdon, far from it, unworthy here we welcome when, where Mary found no room at inn. True, true, the priest sighed, staying there, the cup of Bethlehem wine in hand, then sipped yet by sad, absent air, the flavor seeming to forswear, nor less the juice did glad the gland, the abstemious hunger noted all. Grave silence keeping Rolf let fall, strange of the sacred places here, and all through Palestine indeed. Not one we Protestants hold dear, enough to tend and care for. Pray, the priest, and why now should that breed astonishment? But say your say, why Shakespeare's house in Stratford town ye keep with loving tendance true, set it apart in reverence due, a shrine to which the pilgrims won across an ocean's stormy tide. What zeal, what faith is there implied? Pure worship localized in grace, tradition's sole providing base. Your drift I catch, and yet I think that they who most and deepest drink at Shakespeare's fountain scarce incline to idolize the local shrine. What's in mere place that can be stead? Nay, 'tis the heart here, not the head. You note some pilgrims hither bring the rich or humble offering. If that's irrational, what then? In kindred way your Lutheran will rival it. Yes, in sad hour, the Lutheran widow lays her flower before the picture of the dead. Vital affections do not draw precepts from reason's arid law. Ah, clever, but we won't contend. As for these places, my dear friend, thus stands the matter, as you know, ere Luther yet made his demur. These legend precincts high and low in custody already were, of Greek and Latin who retain, so even did we wish to be, shrine keepers here and share the fee. No sites for Protestants remain. The compliant service they attend, then bedward travel worn they wend, and like a bland breeze out of heaven, the gracious boon of sleep is given. But Unger island in thought, which not from place a prompting caught, alone upon the terrace stair, lingered in adoration there, of eastern skies now night enthrones, Arcturus and his shining suns, and lo, Job's chambers of the south, how might his hand not go to mouth, and kiss adoring ye, bright zones? Look up, the age forget, there's something to look up to yet.
Clarel, A Poem and Pilgrimage in the Holy Land, by Herman Melville. Part 4, Section 8, The Pillow. When rule and era passed away, with old Sylvanus stories say, the oracles adrift were hurled, and ocean moaned about the world, and wandering voices without name at sea to sailors did proclaim, Pan, Pan is dead. Such fables old, from man's deep nature are they rolled, pained and perplexed, awed over awed by sense of change, but never word aerial by mortal heard. Rumors that vast eclipse, if slow, whose passage yet we undergo, emerging on an age untried, if not all oracles be dead, the upstart ones the old deride. Parrots replace the sibyls fled, by rote repeat in lilting pride. Lodged in power, enlarged in all, man achieves his last exemption, hopes no heaven, but fears no fall, king in time, nor needs redemption. They hymn. But these who cloistral dwell in Bethlehem hear, and share faith's spell meekly, and keep her tenor mild. What know they of a world beguiled? Or, knowing, they but know too well. Buzz thoughts. To Rolf they came in doze, his brain like ocean's murmuring shell, between the dream and slumber's light repose.
Canto 9, The Shepherd's Dale. Up, up, around morn's standard rally. She makes assortic join the sally. Up, slugabeds, up, up. That call, ere matins did each pilgrim hear. In cell and knew the blithe voice clear. Beshrew thee, thou art poetical, Rolf murmured from his place, withdrawn, aye, brother, but 'tis not surprising. Apollo's the god of early rising. Up, up, the negro groom of night leads forth the horses of the dawn. Up, up, so Derwent, a jocund sprite. Although but 2 days now were past, since he had viewed a sunrise last, persuaded them to join him there, and unto convent roof repair. Thought one, he's of no nature surly, so cheerful in the morning early. Sun worship over, they came down, and Derwent lured them forth and on. Behind the convent lies a dale, the valley of the shepherd's name, and never may the title fail, by old tradition fondly claimed, to be in truth the very ground, about whose hollow on the mound of hills reclined in dozing way, that simple group ere break of day, which startled by their flock's dismay, all bleeding up to them in panic, and sparkling in scintillant array, beheld a splendor diaphanic, effulgence never dawn hath shot, nor flying meteors of the night, and trembling rose shading the sight, but heard the angel breathe, fear not, so might one irreverently dare terrene with heavenly to compare, so oft in midwatch on that sea, where the ridged Andes of Peru are far seen by the coasting crew. Waves, sails, and sailors in accord, illumined are in a mystery, wonder and glory of the Lord, though manifest in aspect minor, phosphoric ocean in Shekinah. And down now in that dale they go, meeting a little St. John boy in sackcloth shirt and belt of tow, leading his sheep. Ever behind he kept one hand stained with a shrub, the which and you licked never coy, and all the rest with docile mind, followed and fleece with fleece did rub, beyond hard by twin planted tents, paced as in friendly conference, 2 shepherds on the pastoral hill, brown patriarchs in shaggy cloak, peaceful they went as in a yoke, the oxen unto pasture oak, to lie in shade when noon is still, nibbling the herb or far or near, advance their flocks and yet would veer. For width of range makes wayward will, Unger beheld what treat they of, having the land, this might reclaim, old years of Lot and Abraham, just ere they parted in remove, a peaceful parting, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, my herdman and thine own. For we be brethren, see the land is all before thee, fenced by none, then separate thyself from me. I pray thee, if now the left hand thou Lot wilt take, then I will go unto the right. If thou depart unto the right, then I will go unto the left. They parted so, and not unwisely, both were wise. 'Twas east and west, but north and south. Rolf marked the nip of quivering mouth. Passion repressed within the eyes, but ignorance feigned. This calm, he said, how fitly hereabout is shed the sight of Eden's place not far. In bonds 'tween man and animal, survives yet under Asia's star, a link with years before the fall. Indeed, cried Derwent, pleased thereat, bless, bless is here the creature's state. Those pigeons now in Saba's hold, their wings how winsome would they fold, alighting at one's feet so soft. Doves too in mosque I've marked aloft. At hour of prayer through window come, from trees adjacent and a thrill, perch, coo, and nestle in the dome, or fly with green sprig in the bill. How by the marble fount and court, where for ablution Turks resort, ere going in to hear the word, these small apostles they regard, which of sweet innocence report. None stone the dog, caress the steed, only poor Dobbin, Jew indeed of brutes, seems slighted in the east. Ungar, who chafed in heart of him at Rolf's avoidance of his theme, although he felt he scarce could blame, here turned his vexed mood on the priest. As cruel as a Turk, whence came that proverb old as the Crusades? From Anglo-Saxons, what are they? Let the horse answer, and blockades of medicine and civil fray. The Anglo-Saxons lacking grace to win the love of any race, hated by myriads dispossessed of rights, the Indians east and west. These pirates of the sphere, grave looters, grave canting, Mammonite freebooters, who in the name of Christ and trade, O bucklered forehead of the brass, deflower the world's last sylvan glade. Alas, alas, 10 times alas, poor Anglo-Saxons dare went side. Nay, but if their eye lurch too wide, respond to this, old ballads sing, fair Christian children crucified by impious Jews, you've heard the thing. Yes, fable, but there's truth hard by. How many hues of Lincoln say, does Mammon and his mills today? Crook if he do not crucify. Ah, come, said Derwent, come now, come. Think you that we who build the home for foundlings and yield sums immense to hospitals for indigents, your alms box smaller than your till, and poorhouse won't absolve your mill. But what ye are a straw may tell, your dearth of phrases affable, Italian, French, more tongues than these, addresses have of courtesies, and kindliness of man toward man, by prince used and by artisan, and not pervertible in sense of scorn or slight, ye have the sir, that soul employed in snub or slur, never in pure benevolence, and as its best a formal term of cold regard. Ah, why so warm in mere philology, dear sir, pled Derwent. There, don't that confer sweet amity, I used the word, but Ungar heeded not, scarce heard, and earnest as the earnest tomb, with added feeling, sting and gloom, his strange impeachment urged, reply came none, they let it go, for why? Argue with man of bitter blood, but Rolf he could but grieve within, for countrymen in such a mood, knowing the cause, the origin.
Clarel, A Poem and Pilgrimage in the Holy Land by Herman Melville. From Part 4, Canto 10, A Monument. Wise Derwent, that discourse to end, pointed athwart the dale divine. What's yonder object? Fountain? Shrine? Companions, let us thither go, and make inspection. In consent, silent they follow him in calm. It proved an ancient monument, rude stone, but tablets lent a charm. 3 tablets on 3 sides. In one the tender shepherd mild looked down upon the rescued weaning lost, snugged now in arms. In emblem crossed by pastoral crook, Christ's monogram, wrought with a medieval grace, showed on the square opposed in face. But chiefly did they feel the claim of the main tablet. There a lamb on passive haunches upright sate, in patience which reproached not fate. The 2 fine furry forelegs drooping like tassels, while the shearer stooping embraced it with one arm, and all the fleece rolled off in seamless shawl, flecked here and there with hinted blood. It did not shrink, no cry did come. In still life of that stone subdued, shearer and shorn alike were dumb. As with a 74, when lull lapses upon the storm, the hull rights for the instant, while a moan of winds succeeds the howl. So here, in poise of heart and altered tone with hunger, respite brief though dear it proved, for he, this type's assigned to one who sharing not man's mind partook man's frame, whose mystic birth wrecked him upon this reef of earth, inclement and inhuman. Yet through all the trials that beset, he leaned on an upholding arm, foreknowing, too, reserves of balm. But how of them whose souls may claim some link with Christ beyond the name, which share the fate, but never share aid or assurance, and nowhere look for requital? such there be. In bylanes o'er the world ye see the Calvary faces. All averse turned Derwent, murmuring, Forbear, such breakers do the heaven asperse. But timely he alert espied, upon the mountain humbly kneeling, those shepherds twain, while morning tide rolled o'er the hills with golden healing. It was a rock they kneeled upon, convenient for their rite avowed, kneeled in their turbaned foreheads bowed over till they kissed the stone. Each shaggy surcoat heedful spread for rug, such as in mosque is laid. About the ledges favored him, mild fed their sheep, enringing them, while facing as by second sight, toward Mecca they direct the right. Look, and their backs on Bethlehem turned, cried Rolf. The priest then, who discerned the drift, replied, Yes, for they pray to Allah. Well, and what of that? Christ listens, standing in heaven's gate, benignant listens, nor does stay upon a syllable in creed, vowels and consonants indeed. And Rolf, but here where Margoth now, seeing yon shepherds praying so, his guide would run from man to man, which is the humble publican. Or do they but prostrate them there, to flout you Franks with Islam's prayer? Doubtless some shallow thing he'd say, poor fellow, Derwent then, but nay, earnest they are, nor yet they'd part, if pealed the hour in street or mart, from like observance. If 'tis so, the refugee let all avow, as openly faith's loyal heart. By Christians too was God confessed, how frankly, in those days that come, no more to misnamed Christendom. Religion then was the good guest, first served and last in every gate, what mottos upon wall and pate. She every human venture shared, the ship in manifest declared, that not disclaiming heaven she thrust her bowsprit into fog and storm. Some current silver bore and palm of Christ, token of saint or bust. In line devout the pikemen kneeled, to battle by the right were scaled. Men were not lettered, but had sense beyond the mean intelligence, that knows to read, and but to read, not think. 'Twas harder to mislead the people then, whose smattering now does but the more their ignorance show. Nay, them to peril more expose, is as the ring in the bull's nose, whereby a pert boy turns and winds this monster of 1,000,000 minds. Men owned true masters, kings owned God, their master. Louis plied the rod upon himself in high estate, not puffed up like a democrat in office. How was Charlemagne? Look up he did, look up in rain, humbly look up, who might look down. His meekest thing was still his crown. How meek on him, since graven there among the apostles 12. Behold, stern scriptural precepts were enrolled, high admonitions meet for kings. The coronation was a prayer, which yet in ceremonial clings. The church was like a bonfire warm, all ranks were gathered round the charm. Derwent, who vainly had essayed to impede the speaker or blockade, snatched at the bridle here. Ho, wait, a word, impetuous laureate. This bric-a-braccious style, outgrown almost, where first it gave the tone of lauding the quaint ages old. But nay, that's satire, I withhold. Grant your side of the shield part true, what then? Why turn the other? View the buckler in reverse. Don't sages denominate those times dark ages? Dark Middle Ages, times midnight. If night, it was no starless one. Art still admires what then was done, a strength they showed which is of light. Not more the Phidian marbles prove the graces of the Grecian prime, and indicate what men they were, than the grand ministers in remove do intimate, if not declare a magnanimity which our time would envy. were it great enough to comprehend. Your counterbuff, however, holds. Yes, frankly, yes, another side there is, admit. Nor less the very worst of it reveals not such a shamelessness of evildoer and hypocrite and sordid mercenary sin as these days vaunt and revel in. No use, the priest aside. Patience, it is the maddest tide, and seated him. And hunger then, what's overtaken ye pale men? Shrewd are ye, the main chance ye heed. Has God quite lost his throne indeed, that lukewarm now ye grow? Wilt own, counsel ye take with fossil stone? Your sects do nowadays create churches as worldly as the state. And for your more established forms, once in York I viewed through storms the minister's majesty of mine. Towers, peaks, and pinnacles sublime. Faith's iceberg, stranded on a scene how alien, and an alien time. But now, he checked himself and stood. Whence this strange bias of his mood, thought they, leaning to things corroded, but many deemed for I exploded. But truly, knowing not the man at fault, they in conjecture ran. But hunger, as in fitter place set down, being sprung from Romish race, albeit himself had spared to feed on any one elected creed or rite, though much he might recall in annals bearing upon all. And in this land named of behest, a wandering Ishmael from the west, inherited the Latin mind, which late, blown by the adverse wind of harder fortunes that molest, kindled from ember into coal. The priest, as one who keeps him whole, anew turns toward the kneeling twain. Your air's slight, or if a stain, 'twill fade. Our Lord enjoins good deeds, nor catechizeth in the creeds. A something in the voice or man, or in assumption of the turn, which prior theme did so adjourn, pricked hunger, and a look he ran toward Derwent, an electric light chastising in its fierce revolt, then settled into that still night of cloud which has discharged the bolt.
At breakfast in refectory there, the priest, if Clarel not mistook, the good priest wore the troubled air of honest heart, striving to brook injury, from which words abstained, and hence not readily arraigned, which to requite in its own sort is not allowed in heaven's high court or self-respects. Such would forget, but for the teasing doubt or fret, lest unto worldly witness mere the injury none the less appear to challenge notice at the least. Unger withdrew, leaving the priest less ill at ease, who now a thought threw out, as 'twere in sad concern for one whose nature, sour or stern, still dealt in all unhandsome flings at happy times and happy things. The bramble saith it is not, poor man, but that and quite forbore to vent his grievance, nor less sore he felt it. Clarel so inferred, recalling here too Mortmain's word of cutting censorship. How then? While most who met him frank averred that Derwent ranked with best of men, the Swede and refugee unite in one repugnance, yea, and slight. How construe their ill content a thing of vein and temperament? Rolfe liked him, and if Vine said naught, yet even Vine seemed not uncheered by fair address. Then stole the thought of how the priest had late appeared in that one confidential hour, ambiguous on Saba's tower. There he dismissed it, let it fall, to probe o'er much seems finical, nor less, for still the point did tease, nor would away and leave at ease, nor less, I wonder, if ere long he'll turn this off, not worth a song, as lightly as of late he turned poor Mortman's Sally when he burned.
Canto 12 of Pope and Turk. Marking the priest not all sedate, Rolf that a friend might fret discard, turned his attention to debate between two strangers at the board. In furtherance of his point or plea, one said, "Late it was told to me, and by the man himself concerned, a merchant frank on Syria's coast, that in a fire which traveled post, his books and records being burned, his Christian debtors held their peace. The Islam ones disclaimed release, and came with purses and accounts, and duly rendered their amounts. 'Twas very kind, but oh the greed, rapacity, and crime at need, and satraps which oppress the throng, true, but with these 'tis after all wrongdoing purely personal, not legislated, not a wrong, law sanctioned, no the Turk admit, and scheme of state the scheme of it. Upon the civil arm confers, away above the scimitars. The civil power itself subjects unto that Koran which respects, nor place nor person, nay adjourn the jeer, for now aside will turn, dismember Poland and o'erthrow, in 95 all unredressed. Did France, did England then protest? England, I'm sure I do not know. Come, I distrust your shifting so. Pray to what end now is this pressed? Why here armed Christendom looking on, in protest the Sultan stood alone. Indeed, but all this seems to me savors of Urquhart's vanity. The commentator on the East? The same, that very inexact eccentric ideologist, now obsolete, and that's your view. He stands for God, I stand by fact. Well then, another fact or two. When Poland's place in 31 was blotted out, the Turk again protested with one other man, the Pope. These, and but these alone, and in the protest both avowed, 'twas made for justice' sake and God, you smile. Oh no, but very clear, the protest prompted was by fear, and Turk and Pope that time might come, when spoliation should drive home. Upon themselves, besides you know, the Polish church was Catholic. The Tsar would wrest it to the Greek. 'Twas that touched Rome, but let it go. In pith, what is it you would show? Are Turks our betters, very strange? Heaven's favor does not choicely range upon these Islam people good. Bedrid they are, behindhand all, while Europe flowers in plenitude of wealth and commerce. I recall nothing in Testament which saith that worldliness shall not succeed in that wherein it laboureth. Howbeit the Sultan's coming on, fine lesson from ye has he won, of late, apt pupil he indeed, or must that riches did confer, or must is made a borrower, Salim who grandly turbaned sat, verges on bankruptcy and hat. But this don't touch the rank and file, at least as yet, but preach and work, you'll civilize the barbarous Turk. Nay, all the East may reconcile, that done, let Mammon take the wings of even, and mount and civilize the saints in heaven. I laugh, I like a brave caprice, and sir, but here did Rolf release, his ear and dare went too, a stir, and court was heard of man and steed, neighings and mountings, din indeed, and Rolf, come, come, our traveller. Canto 13, The Church of the Star. They rise, and for a little space, and farewell a Gath they detain, transferred here to a timelier train, than theirs. A workday passive face. He turns to Derwent's luck to thee. No slight he means, 'tis far from that, but schooled by the inhuman sea, he feels 'tis vain to wave the hat, and Godspeed on this mortal strand, recalling all the sailing crews, destined to sleep in ocean sand, cheered from the wharf with blithe adieus. Nor less the heart's farewell, they say, and bless the old man on his way. Led by a slender monk and young, with curls that ring the shaven crown. Courts now and shrines they trace that thong, ascetic, which can life chastise, down to her bleak necessities. They mark and coarse serge of his gown, and girdling rope with cross of wood, for taget in and hut-like hood, superfluous now behind him thrown, and sandals which expose the skin, transparent, and the blue vein thin, meandering there, the feet, the face, alike in lucid marble grace, his simple manners self-possessed, both saint and noble born suggest, yet under quietude they mark the slumbering of a vivid spark, excitable if brought to test. A Tuscan he exchanged the charm. Val d'Arno yields for this dull calm of desert. Was his youth self-given in frank oblation unto heaven? Or what inducement might disarm this Isaac when too young to know? Here on they pacing, music till low. The temple opens in dusk glades of long-drawn double colonnades, monoliths to score and eight. Rolf looked about him, pleased in state. But this is goodly. Here we rove, as down the deep Dodona grove. Years, years, and years these bulls have stood, late by the spring in idle mood. My will I made, if ye recall, providing for the inn of trees. But to set out trunks like these in harbor open until all for generations. So invade Rolf free descanted as through fane they passed, but noting now the guide. In acquiescence by their side he checked himself. Why prayed I here? This brother I usurp his seer. They came unto a silver star in pavement set which none do mar. By treading here at pause remained the monk till seeing Rolf refrained. In all from words he said, the place, Signori, where that shining grace, which led the Magi, stood below. The manger is, they comment, none, not voicing everything they know. In cirque about that silver star they quietly gazed thereupon, but turning now one glanced afar along the columned aisles and thought of Baldwin whom the mailed knights brought, while Godfrey's requiem did ring, hither to Bethlehem and crowned, his temple's helmet worn with round of gold and velvet crowned him king, king of Jerusalem on floor of this same nave august, above the manger in its low remove, where lay 1,000 years before the child of awful worshipping, destined to prove all slights and scorns, and a god's coronation thorns. Not Derwent's was that reverie, another thing his heart possessed, the clashing of the east and west. Odd sense of incongruity, he felt a secret impulse move, to start a humorous comment slant upon the monk and sly reprove. But no, I'll curb the Protestant, and modern in me, at least here for time I'll curb it. Perish truth, if it but act the bore in sooth, requiting courtesy with jeer, for courteous is our guide with grace. Of a pure heart, some little trace may be of Derwent's passing thought, the Tuscan from his aspect caught, and turned him, pardon, but the crypt, this was Signori, follow me. Down by a rock-hewn stair they slipped, turning by steps which winding be, winning a sparry chamber brave, unsearched by that prose critic keen, the daylight, Archimago's cave, was here, or that more sorcerous scene, the Persian Sibyl kept within, for turbaned musings, bowing over, crossing himself, and on the knee. Straight did the guide that grot adore, then rising and as one set free. The place of the nativity, dim pendant lamps in clusters small, where Pleiades of the mystic hall, fair lamps of silver, lamps of gold, rich gifts devout of monarchs old. Kings Catholic, rare objects beamed, all round recalling things but dreamed. Solomon's talismans garnered up, his sword, his signet ring, and cup. In further caverns part revealed, what silent shapes like statues kneeled, what brown monks moved by twinkling shrines, like Aztecs down in silver mines. This, the stable mean and poor, noting their looks towards surprise, the Italian, 'tis encrusted over with marbles, so that now one's eyes meet not the natural wall of this floor, but how within a cave we stand. Yes, caves of old to use were put for cattle, and with gates were shut. One meets them still with arms at hand, the keepers nigh, sure it need be that if in Gihon ye have been, or hereabouts yourselves have seen the grots in question, they agree and silent in their hearts confess the strangeness, but the truth no less. Anew the guide ere now we get further herein, indulge me yet, but pause the while, though over this cave, where Christ and cross himself had birth, Constantine's mother reared the nave, whose Greek mosaics fade and bloom. No older church in Christendom, and generations with the girth of domes and walls have still enlarged and built about yet convents, shrines, cloisters, and towers take not for signs. Entreat ye of meek faith submerged, under proud masses be it urged, as all began from these small bounds, so by all avenues and gates, all here returns, hereto redounds, in this one cave all terminates. In honor of the manger soul, saints, kings, knights, prelates reared the whole. He warmed a fervor, plot too dear, the fingers clutching rope and cross, life too intense, the cheek austere, deepening in hollow waste and loss. They marked him, and at heart some knew, inklings they loved not to pursue, but Rolf recalled in fleeting gleam, the first Franciscan richly born, the youthful one who night and morn in Umbria ranged the hills in dream, and first devised the girdling cord, in type that rebel senses so should led be led like beast abroad by halter, Tuscan in the glow, and white light of thy face illumings. In vigils, fervent prayers and trances, agonies and self-consumings, renewest thou the young Saint Francis. So inly Rolf, when in low tone, considerate Derwent whispered, near, 'tis doubtless the poor boy's first year. In Bethlehem time will abate this novice ardor, yes, sedate. He'll grow, adapt him to the sphere, close to the sanctum now they drew, a semicircular recess, and there in marble floor they view, a silver sun which friars profess, is set in plummet line exact. Beneath the star and pavement tract, above and raying from this sun, shoot jasper spikes which so point out argent inscription round about, and Latin text which thus may run, the Virgin here brought forth the Son. The Tuscan bowed him then with air, friendly he turned, but something there, in Derwent's look no matter what, an open levity 'twas not, disturbed him, and in accents clear, as challenged in his faith sincere. I trust tradition, here he lay, who shed on Mary's breast the ray, Salvator Mundi. Turning now, he noted and he bade them see, where with a timid piety, a band of rustics bent them low, and worship mute, shepherds these are, and come from pastoral hills, not far, whereon they keep the night watch wild, these like their sires adore the child, and in same spot but mixed with these, mark ye yon poor swart images in other garb, but late they fled from over Jordan hither, yes, escaping so the heinousness of one with price upon his head, but look and yet seem not to peer, lest pain ye give an eye and ear. A hand is mutilate or gone. The mangler marked them for his own, but Christ redeems them, Derwent here. His eyes withdrew, but hunger not, while visibly the red blood shot into his thin skin scar and sent, as seemed, a pulse of argument, confirming so some angry sense of evil and malevolence, in man toward man now lower down, the cave, the manger, they descry, with marble lined and over it thrown, a lustrous saintcloth meets the eye, and suits of saintcloths here they have, wherewith to deck the manger brave. Gifts of the Latin princes these, fair Christmas gifts, these draperies, a damask one of gold and white, rich flowered with pinks embroidered bright, was for the present week in turn, the adornment of the sacred urn. Impressive was it here to note, those herdsmen in the shaggy coat. Impressive yet partook of dream, it touched the pilgrims as might seem, which pleased the monk but in disguise, modest he dropped his damsel eyes. Thought Derwent then, demure in sooth, 'tis like a maid in lily of youth, who grieves not in her core of glee, by spells of grave virginity, to cozen men to foolish looks, while she who reads such heart's hid nooks. What now, signori, here believe, where night and day, while ages run, faith in these lamps burns on and on. 'Tis good to spend one's Christmas Eve, yea, better rather than in land, which may your holly tree command, and greens profuse which ye enweave.
fervid he spake, and Unger there appeared, if looks allow surmise, in latent way to sympathize, yet wonder at the votary's air, and frequent too he turned his face to note the grotto, and compare these haunted precincts with the guide, as so to realize the place, or fact from fable to divide. At times his changeful aspect wore touch of the look the simple shepherds bore. The Tuscan marked, he pierced him through, yet gently, gifted with the clue ascetic insight, and he caught the lapse within the soldier's thought, the favorable frame, nor missed appealing to it, to enlist or influence or drop a seed which might some latter harvest breed. Gently approaching him, he said, "True sign you bear, your sword's a cross." Unger but started, as at loss to take the meaning, and yet led to marvel how that mannered word did somehow slip into accord with visitings that scarce might cleave shadows, but shadows fugitive. He lifted up the steel. The blade was straight, the hilt a bar. "'Tis true, a cross, it is a cross," he said, and touched seemed, though 'twas hardly new. When glowed the other, and again Ignatius was a soldier too, and Martin, "'Tis the pure disdain of life, or holding life the real, still subject to a brave ideal, 'tis this that makes the tent a porch, whereby the warrior wins the church. The habit of renouncing, yes, 'tis good, a good preparedness. Our founder," here he raised his eyes unto all the sanctities, "footing it near Righty town, met a young knight on horseback, one named Angelo Tancredi. 'Lo,' he said, 'thy belt thou'lt change for cord, thy spurs for mire, good Angelo, and be a true knight of the Lord.' And he, the cavalier, aside, a brother of the cowl here drew this ardent proselyting guide, detaining him in interview about some matter. Unger stood lost in his thoughts. In neighborhood, Derwent by Rolfe here chanced to bide, and said, "It just occurs to me as interesting in its way, that these Franciscans steadily have been custodians of the tomb and manger ever since the day of rescue, under Godfrey's plume long centuries ago." Rolfe said, "Aye, and appropriate seems it too for the Franciscan retinue to keep these places, since their head, St. Francis, spite his scouted hood, may claim more of similitude to Christ than any man we know. Through clouds of myth investing him, obscuring yet attesting him, he burns with the seraphic glow and perfume of a holy flower, sweetness, simplicity, with power. By love's true miracle of charm, he instituted a reform, not insurrection, which restored for time the spirit of his Lord on earth. If sad perversion came unto his order, what of that? All Christianity shares the same. Pure things men need adulterate, and so adapt them to the kind. Oh, but I have grown resigned to these vagaries, and for him, Assisi's saint, a good young man, no doubt, and beautiful to limb, yes, something soft, Elysian. Nay, rather the transparent hue unearthly of a maiden tranced in sleep, somnambulic. No true color of health, beauty enhanced to enervation. In a word, for all his charity divine, love, self-devotion, ardor fine, unmanly seems he. Of our Lord the same was said by Machiavel, or hinted rather. Prithee, tell, what is it to be manly? Why, to be manlike, and here the chest bold he threw, man at his best. But even at best one might reply, man is that thing of sad renown which moved a deity to come down and save him. Lay not too much stress upon the carnal manliness. The Christliness is better, higher. And Francis owned it, the first friar. Too orthodox is that? See, see, said Derwent, with kind air of one who would a brother's weak spot shun. Mark this most delicate drapery, if woven by some royal dame. God bless her and her tambour frame.
Symphonies. Meanwhile, with Vine there, Clarel stood aside in friendly neighborhood, and felt a flattering pleasure stir at words, nor an equivocal tone freakish or leaving to infer, such as before time he had known, breathed now by that exceptional one in unconstraint. 'Tis very much the cold, fastidious heart to touch this way, nor is it mere dress that so could move one silver cord. How he transfigured Ungar's sword! Delusive is this earnestness which holds him in his passion pale. Tenant of melancholy's dale of mirage? To interpret him, perhaps it needs a swallow's skim over distant time. Migrate with me across the years, across the sea. How like a poor Clare in her cheer, grave sister of his order sad, showed nature to that Cordelier, who roving in the Mexic glade, saw in a bud of happy dower, whose stalk entwined by the tropic tree. Emblems of Christ's last agony. In anther's style and fibres torn, the 5 wounds, nails, and crown of thorn. And named it so the passion flower, what beauty in that sad conceit. Such charm the title still we meet. Our guide, methinks, wherever he turns, for him this passion flower burns. A green knoll is to you and me, but pastoral and little more. To him 'tis even Calvary, where feeds the lamb, this passion flower. But list! Hid organ pipes unclose a timid rill of slender sound, which gains in volume, grows and flows gladsome in amplitude of bound. Low murmurs creep. From either side tenor and treble interpose, and talk across the expanding tide. Debate which in confusion merges. Din and clamor, discord's height, countering surges, paeans, dirges, mocks and laughter light. But rolled in long ground swell persistent, a tone and undertone assails, and overpowers all near and distant. Earnest and sternest it prevails. Then terror, horror, wind and rain, accents of undetermined fear, and voices as in shipwreck drear. A sea of spirits in pain. The suppliant cries decrease. The voices in their ferment cease. One wave rolls over all and whelms to peace. But hark, oh hark, whence this stir, this whir of wings? Numbers numberless convening, harps and childlike carolings, in happy holiday of meaning. To God be glory in the height, for tidings glad we bring. Goodwill to men and peace on earth, we children cherubs sing. To God be glory in the depth, and in the height be praise. He who shall break the gates of death, a babe in manger raise. Ye people all in every land, embrace, embrace be kin. Emmanuel's born in Bethlehem, and gracious years begin. It dies, and half round the heavenly sphere, like silvery lances lightly touched aloft, like northern lights appealing to the ear, an elfin melody chimes low and soft. That also dies, that last strange fairy thrill. Slowly it dies away, and all is sweetly still.
Canto 16, The Convent Roof. To branching grottos next they fare, old caves of penitence and prayer. Where Paula kneeled, her urn is there, Paula the widow, Scipio's heir. But Christ's adopted, While her tomb adjoins her friends renowned Jerome, never the attending Druze resigned, his temperate poise, his moderate mind, while Belec's in punctilious guard relinquished not the martial ward. If by his tomb hot strife may be, trust ye his cradle shall be free? Heed one experience, sirs, his sword, held cavalier by jingling chain, dropping at whiles would clank amain upon the pave. I pray ye now. To him said Rolf in accents low, have care, for see ye not ye jar these devotees? They turn, they cease, hearing your clanging scimitar, their suppliants to the Prince of Peace. Like miners from the shaft or tars, from forth the hold up from those spars, and grottos by the stony stair, they climb, emerge, and seek the air. In open space, save me what now? Cried Durant, foremost of the group. The holy water, hanging low, outside was fixed a scallop stop, or marble shell to hold the wave of Jordan for true ones to lave. The finger, and so make the sign, the cross's sign, ere in thy slip, and bend the knee. In this divine recess deliberately a lip was lapping slow with long-drawn pains, the liquid globules last remains of the full stone, astray, alas, athirst and lazed it was the ass. The friars withdrawn for time having left that court untended and bereft, was ever Saracen so bold, while things have come to pretty pass, the mystery slobbered by an ass. Mere nature do we here behold, so they, but he, the earnest guide, turning the truant there aside, said, and in unaffected tone, what should it know, this foolish one? It is an infidel we see. Ah, the poor brute's stupidity. I hardly think so, Derwin said, for look, it hangs the conscious head. The friar no relish had for wit, no sense perhaps, too rapt for it. Preoccupied, so having seen, the ass led back he bade adieu, but first and with the kindliest mind, Signori, would ye have fair view of Bethlehem of Judea? Pray ascend to roof, ye take yon stair, and now heaven have ye in its case. Me save from sin and all from error. Farewell, but Derwent, yet delay. Fain would we cherish win away. Thy name then, brother Savatera. 'Tis a fair name, and brother, we are not insensible conceive to thy most Christian courtesy. He goes, sweet echo does he leave. In Savatera may it dwell, silver in every syllable. And import too, said Rolf, they fare, and win the designated stair, and climb, and as they climb and bell, of Derwent's repetition fell. Me save from sin and all from error. So praise good brother Savatera, and pave flat roof how ample there, they tread a goodly St. Mark's Square. Aloft, an elder brother lorn, they meet with shrunken cheek and worn, like to a slab whereon may weep the unceasing water drops and deep. Within his hollow gown sleeves old, his viewless hands he did enfold. He never spake, but moved away, with shuffling pace of dragged infirm delay. Seaward he gazed, said Rolf, toward home, an empty longing, cruel Rome. Sighed Derwent, see through good to greet the vale of Eclog, Boaz's seat. Trips Ruth there yonder, thitherward, down pointing where the vineyards meet. At that dear name in Bethlehem heard, how Clarel starts, not Agar's child. Naomi's then unreconciled, and in reaction, falling low, he saw the files Armenian go, the tapers round the virgin's bier, and heard the boy's light strophe free, overborne by the men's antistrophe. Illusion, yet he knew a fear, fixed that this second night we bide. In Bethlehem, he asked aside, yes, so 'twas planned for a moment there. He thought to leave them and repair, alone forthwith to Salem, nay, Doubt had unhinged so that her sway in minor things even could retard the will and purpose, and beyond prevailed the tacit pilgrim bound of no slight force in his regard. Besides, a diffidence was sown. None knew his heart, nor might be own. And last feared he to prove the fear. With outward things he sought to clear his mind, and turn to list the tone of Derwent, who to Rolf here now one stands emancipated. How? The air, the liberal air, those witcheries of the cave ill fair, reviewed aloft, Savatara, so winning in thy dulcet era. How fervid thou, nor less thy tone, so heartfelt in sincere effusion, is hardly that more chastened one we Protestants feel, but the illusion. Those grottos, yes, void now they seem, as phantoms which accost in dream, accost and fade, hold you with me, yes, partly I in part agree. And Kedron too thou mayest recall, the monkish night of festival, and mask enacted, how it shrank, when afterward in nature frank, upon the terrace thrown at ease, like magi of the old Kada'a, viewing Rigel and Beetlejuice, and we breathed the balm wind from Saba'a. All shows and forms in Kedron had, nor hymn nor banner made them glad to me, and yet, why who may know? These things come down from long ago, while so much else partakes decay, while states, tongues, manners pass away. How wonderful the Latin rite, surviving still like oak austere, over crops rotated year by year, or Caesar's tower on London site. But tell me, stands it true in fact, that robe and ritual, every kind, by Rome employed in ways exact, however strange to modern mind, or even absurd like cards Chinese and ceremonial usages, not less of faith or need were born, survive untampered with unshorn, date far back to a primal day, obscure and hard to trace indeed, the springing of the planted seed, in the church's first organic sway, still for a type or use, each decoration so profuse. Budding and flowering, tell me here, if but one could to be sincere, Rome's wild campagna of old lore ecclesiastic, that waste shore I've shunned and instinct makes one fear, malarial places, but I'll tell, that at the mass this very morn I marked the broidered maniple, which by the ministrant was worn. How like a napkin does it show, thought I, a napkin on the arm of Servitor, and hence we know its origin in the first days, and who denies their simple charm, when the churches were like household ways, some serve the flock in humble state, at Eucharist pass cup or plate. The thing of simple use, you see, tricked out, embellished, has become theatric and a form. There's Rome. Yet what of this, since happily each superflux men now disown? Perchance 'tis an ambiguous time, and periods unforecast come on. Recurs to me a Persian rhyme, and parallate an Asian man with stately cap of Astrakhan. I knew an arbored coffee house on bluff above the Bosphorus. Strange lore was his, and Saudi's wit. Over pipe and mocha long we'd sit, discussing themes which thrive in shade. In pause of talk a way he had, of humming a low air of his. I asked him once, what trills your bird? And he recited it in word. To pleasure me, and this it is, the flamen put away, robe and mitre glorious, doubt undeifies the day, look in vapors odorous, as the Spice King's funeral pyre, dies the Zoroastrian fire, on your altars in decay, the Magian rule is run, and Mithra abdicates the sun.
Fine, very fine, said Derwent light. But look, yon rustics there in sight crossing the slope, and are they not those Arabs that we saw in Grot? Why, who they be, their garb bespeaks. Yes, 'tis those Arab Catholics. Catholic Arabs, say not that. Some words don't chime together, see? Oh, never mind the euphony, we saw them worship, and but late. Our Bethlehemites that guard, they too are Catholics. I talked with one, and much from his discourse I drew, which the conventicles would shun. These be the children of the sun. They like not prosing, turn the lip from Luther's jug, prefer to sip from that tall chalice, brimmed with wine which Rome hath graved, and made to shine for haughty West and barbarous East, to win all people to her feast. So, but glamoured in that school of taking shows and charmful rites, what ween they of Christ's genuine rule, these credulous poor neophytes? Alas for such disciples! No, at Mass before the altar own, the celebrant in mystic gown to them is but a Prospero, a prince of magic. I deplore that zeal in such conversions seeks less Christians than good Catholics. And here one might append much more, but drop. Yon vineyards they are fair, for hillside scenery, for curve of beauty in a meek reserve, 'tis Bethlehem the bell may bear. Longer he gazed, then turned aside. Clarel was left with Rolf. In view leaned Unger, watching there the guide below, who passed on errand new. Your judgment of him let me crave, him there. Here, lowly Rolf. I would I were his mate, in earnest mood Clarel rejoined. Such faith to have, I'd take the rest, even crib and cave. Ah, you mistake me. Him I mean, our comrade Unger. He? At loss I am, at loss, for he's most strange, wild too, adventurous in range, and suffers, so that one might glean an added import from the word the Tuscan spake. You bear a cross, referring to the straight-hilt sword. I know, and when the Arno ran but yesterday, with arms how bright, like wheeling Phoebus' flashing light, superb about this sombrous man. A soldier too, with vouching tinge, methought, O war, thy bullion fringe never shall gladsome make thy pall. Unger is Mars in funeral of reminiscence, not in pledge and glory of brave equipage and manifesto, but some keen side talk I had with him yestereen, brave soldier and stout thinker both, in this regard and in degree, an Ethan Allen by my troth, or Herbert, Lord of Cherbury, dusked over. 'Tis an iron glove, an armed man in the Druid grove.
The hillside. Pertaining unto nations three, or rather each unto its clan, Greek, Latin, and Armenian, about the fain three convents be, confederate on the mountain fair, blunt buttressed huge with masonry, they mass in Ehrenbreitstein there. In these and in the Empress's fane enough they gathered to detain, or occupy till afternoon, when some of them the ridge went down, to view that legendary grot whose milky chalkiness of vest derived is, so the Hinds allet, from droppings of Madonna's breast, a fairy tale, yet granted due to that creative love alone, wherefrom the fawn and cherub grew, with genii good and Oberon. Returning part way up the height, Ungar they met, and vine in sight. Here all repose them. Look away, cried Derwent, westward pointing. See, how glorified yon vapours be. It is the dying of the day, a hopeful deathbed. Yes, need own there is a morrow for the sun. So mild they sat in pleased delay. Vine turned. What seemed a random word shyly let fall, and they were stirred thereby to broach anew the theme. How wrought the sights of Bethlehem on Western natures! Here some speech was had, and then, for me, Rolf said, from Bethlehem here my musings reach, yes, frankly, to Tahiti's beach. Tahiti? Derwent, you have sped. Ay, truant humour, but to me that vine-wreathed urn of Ver, in sea of halcyons where no tides do flow or ebb, but waves bide peacefully at brim, by beach where palm trees grow that sheltered Omai's olive race. Tahiti should have been the place for Christ in Advent. Dim ye so? Said Ungar, one if he say the god's design was part to broach rebuke of man's fictitious life. So, for his point of approach, came thereunto where that was rife, the land of Pharisees and scorn, Judea with customs hard as horn. This chief to Rolf and Derwent twain. But Derwent, if no grudge he knew, still felt some twinges of the pain, vibrations of the residue, that morning in the dale incurred. Wherefore at present he abstained when Ungar spake from any word receptive. Rolf reply maintained, and much here followed, though of kind scarce welcome to the priest. Resigned he heard, till at a hint the cave he named. If on the first review its shrines seemed each a gilded grave, yet reconsidered they renew the spell of the transmitted story. The grace, the innocence, the glory, shepherds, the manger, and the child. What wonder that it has beguiled so many generations? Ah, though much we knew in desert late, beneath no kind auspicious star, of lifted minds in poised debate. 'Twas of the brain. Consult the heart. Spouse to the brain. Can coax or thwart. Does she renounce the trust divine? Hide it she may, but scarce resign, like to a casket buried deep, which in a fine and fibrous throng the rootless of the forest keep. 'Tis tangled in her meshes strong. Yes, yes, cried Rolf, that tone delights. But oh, these legends, relics, sites. Of yore, you know, Greeks showed the place where Argo landed, and the stone that served to anchor Argo. Yes, and Agamemnon's scepter throne, Mars's spear, and so on. More to please where the goddess suckled Hercules. Priests showed that spot a sacred one. Well then, Madonna's but a dream. The manger and the crib, so deem. So be it, but undo it. Nay, little avails what sages say. Tell Romeo that Juliet's eyes are chemical. Even analyze the iris. Show 'tis albumin, gluten, fish, jelly mere. What then? To Romeo it is still love's sky. He loves, enough. Though faith, no doubt, seem insubstantial as a sigh. Never ween that 'twas a water spout dissolving, dropping into dew at pistol shot. Besides, review that comprehensive Christian scheme. It catches man at each extreme. Simple, august, strange as a dream, yet practical as plodding life, not use and sentiment at strife. They hearken, none aver dissent, nor one confirms him, while his look unwitting an expression took scarce insincere, yet so it lent provocative to Ungar's heart, who bridling the embittered part, thus spake, this yieldeth no content, your implication lacketh stay. There is a callousness in clay. Christ's pastoral parables divine, breathing the sweet breath of sweet kine. At wholesome too, how many feel? Feel, rather put it, comprehend? Not unto all does nature lend the gift. At height such love's appeal is hard to know, as inner deep is hate. A prior love must steep the spirit. Head nor heart have marge commensurate in man at large. Indulge me, Durant. Grant it so as you present it. 'Tis most strange how Christ should work his powerful change. The world turned Christian long ago. The world but joined the creed divine with prosperous days and Constantine. The world turned Christian, need confess, but the world remained the world, no less. The world turned Christian, where's the odds? Hearts change not in the change of gods. Despite profession's outward shows, so far as working practice goes, more minds with shrewd Voltaire have part than now own Jesus in the heart. Not rashly judge, said Durant grave, prudence will here decision waive. No, shift the test. How Buddha pined, pierced with the sense of all we bear, not only ills by fate assigned, but misrule of our selfish mind, fain would the tender sage repair. Well, Asia owns him, but the lives, Buddha but in a name survives, a name aright, Confucius too. Does China take its honest hue? Some forms they keep, some forms of his, but well we know them, the Chinese. Ah, Moses, thy deterring dart, ethereal visitants of earth. Foiled benefactors proves your worth, but sundry texts disowned in mart, light scratched, not graved on man's hard heart. 'Tis penalty makes sinners start. A newcomer. Good echoes echo it. Ho, chant, 'tis penalty we sinners want. By all means, penalty. What man thus struck in here so consonant? They turn them and a stranger scan, as through the rigging of some port where cheek by jowl the ships resort. The sea-beat hulls of briny oak peereth the May day's jocund sun. So through his inlaced wrinkles broke a nature bright, a beaming one. Hidalgos, pardon! Strolling here these fine old villa sights to see, I caught that good word penalty, and could not otherwise than cheer. Pray now, here be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 legs. I'll add one more by leave, and eke an arm. In hobbling state he came among them with one sleeve loose flying and one witted limb, a leg. All eyes the cripple skim. Each rises and his seat would give, but Derwent in advance. Why, Don, my good Don Hannibal, I mean. Señor Don Hannibal Rohan del Aquaviva, a good even. Ha, thou, isn't thou? The other cried, and peered and stared not unamazed, then flung his one arm around him wide, then at arm's length, St. James be praised with all the calendar. But tell, what wind wafts here, Don Hannibal? When last I left thee at the Cock, in Fleet Street thou wert like a rock, for England, bent on anchoring there. Oh, too much agitation, yes, too proletarian it proved. I've stumped about since, no redress. Norway's too cold, Egypt's all glare, and everywhere that I removed, this cursed progress still would greet. All where, thought I, in old world view, some blessed asylum from the new? At last I steamed for Joppa's seat, resolved on Asia for retreat. Asia for me, Asia will do. But just where to pitch tent, invest, that's the point. I'm still in quest, Don Derwent. Look, the sun falls low, but lower the funds in Mexico, where to he's sinking. Gentlemen, said Derwent, turning on them then, I introduce and do commend to ye Don Hannibal Rohan. He is my estimable friend and well-beloved. Great fame he's won in war, those limbs. St. James defend. Here cried Don Hannibal, stop, stop. Pulled down as Montezuma's whole. Hidalgos I am, as ye see, just a poor cripple, that is all. A cripple, yet contrived to hop far from Mexic liberty. Thank God. I lost these limbs for that, and would that they were mine again, and all were back to former state. On Mexico and poor old Spain, and for Don Derwent here, my friend, you know his way. And so I end, poor penitent American. Oh, 'tis the sorriest thing, in me a reformado, reformed, ye see. Ungar, a very Indian here, too serious far to take a jest, or rather who no sense possessed of humor. He, for eye austere, took much in earnest, and a light of attestation overbright shot from his eyes, though part suppressed. But penalties, these penalties, he cried, the crippled one again. Proceed, Hidalgo, name you these same capital good penalties, they're needed. Hold, let me explain, cried Derwent. We as meek as worms, oh, far from taking any pick, as if the kind but formed a clique, have late been hearing in round terms the sore disparagement of man. Don Hannibal, you think I'll disparage him with all my heart? What villain takes the rascal's part? Advance the argument, but stay. 'Tis too much odds now. It won't do such reinforcement come. Nay, nay, I of the old world all alone, maintaining hope and ground for cheer against ye, the offspring of the new. Ah, what reverses time can own, so Derwent light. But earnest here, Ungar, old world, if age's test be this, advanced experience, then in the truer moral sense ours is the old world. You at best in dreams of your advanced reform adopt the cast skin of our worm. Hey, hey, exclaimed Don Hannibal. Not cast quite yet, quite. The snake is sick, would wriggle out, 'tis pitiful, but brave times for the empiric. You spake now of reform. For me among reformers in true way there's one, the imp of Semele. I and brave Raleigh too will say, wine and the weed, blessed innovations, how welcome to the weary nations. And what's in this democracy? Eternal hacking. Woe is me, she lopped these limbs, democracy. Ah, now Don Hannibal Rohan del Aquiviva, Derwent cried. I knew it too upon a side. But Ungar earnest in his plea, intent nor caring to have done, and turning where suggestion led at tangent. I democracy lops, but where's her planted bed? The future, what is that to her who vaunts she's no inheritor? 'Tis in her mouth, not in her heart. The past she spurns, though 'tis the past, from which she gets her saving part. That good which lets her evil last. Behold her whom the panders crown, harlot on horseback, riding down. The very Ephesians who acclaim 'tis great Diana of ill fame. Arch strumpet of an impious age, upstart from rancor villanage. 'Tis well she must restriction taste, nor lay the world's broad manner waste. Asia shall stop her at the least, that old inertness of the East. She's limited, lacking the free and genial Catholicity, which in Christ's pristine scheme unfurled grace to the city and the world. By Cotopaxi a brave vent, and here he took a pinch of snuff, flapping the spill off with loose cuff. Good Excellenza, excellent. But pardon me, in altered tone, I'm sorry, but I must away. And setting crutch he footing won. We're just arrived in cloister there, our little party, and they stay my coming for the convent fair. Adieu, we'll meet anon, we'll meet, Don Derwent. Nay, now never stir, not I would such a group unseat, but happy the good rein and spur that brought thee when once more we greet. Good even, Don Derwent, not goodbye, and cavaliers the evil eye, keep far from ye. He limped away, rolling a wild venture lay. Stand by the great stampede, house your cattle, and stall your steed. Not thou comest, in the still small voice, said Durant, thou queer Mexican, and followed him with eyes, this man, and turned there. He locks night grave talk.
Canto 20, Derwent and Unger. Not thou comest in the still small voice, said Derwent, thou queer Mexican, and followed him with eyes, this man, and turned here. He likes not grave talk, the settled undulated tone, it does his humorous nature balk. 'Twas ever to his sly rebuff, while yet obstreperous in praise, taking that dusty pinch of snuff, an oddity, he has his ways. Yet trust not, friends, the half he says, not he would do a weasel harm, a secret agent of reform. At least that is my theory. The quicksilver is quick to skim. Unger remarked with eye on him, yes, nature has her levity, dropped Derwent. Nothing might disarm the other. He, your word reform. What meanings to that word assigned from Luther's great initial down? Through all the series following on, the impetus augments, the blind precipitation, blind foretell. Whitherward does the surge impel? The end, the aim, 'tis mystery. Oh no, through all methinks I see the object clear, belief revised, men liberated, equalized. And happiness, no mystery, just none at all, plain sailing. Well, assume this, is it feasible? Your methods? These are of the world. Now the world cannot save the world. And Christ renounces it, his faith, breaking with every mundane path, aims straight at heaven to founded thrones. He says, trust not to earthly stanchions, and unto poor and houseless ones. My Father's house has many mansions. Warning and solace be but this, no thought to mend a world amiss. Ah now, pled Derwent, nay. Test further, take another away. Go ask Aurelius Antonine, a Caesar wise, grave, just, benign. Lord of the world, why in the calm, which through his reign the empire grace, why he the most considerate heart, superior and advantage placed, contrive no secular reform, though other he knew not nor balm. Alas, cried Derwent, and in part, as vainly longing for retreat, though good Aurelius was a man matchless in mind as soul in seat, yet pined he under numbing ban of virtue without Christian heat. As much you intimated too, just saying that no balm he knew. Howbeit true reform goes on, by nature doing never done. Mark the advance, creeds drop the hate, events still liberalize the state. But tell, do men now more cohere, and bonds of duty which sustain, cliffs crumble and the parts regain, a liberal freedom, it is clear, and for conventicles I fear, much as a hard heart aged grown, abates in rigor losing tone, so sex decrepit at death's door, dote into peace through loss of power. You put it so, said Derwent, light, no more developments to cite. I quench the true, the mock sun fails, therewith much so hypocrisy. The false thing wanes just in degree, that faith, the true thing, wanes each pales. There's one development to seen in masters whom not low ye rate, what lack in some outgivings late of the old Christian style toward men. I do not mean the wicked ones, but pauperism's unhappy sons, and clouds so blackly ominous, grimy in Mammon's English pen, collaterals of his overplus, how worse than them Emmanuel fed, on hilltop helped and comforted, thou poverty erst free from shame, even sacred through the Saviour's claim, professed by saints, by sages prized, a pariah now and bastardized, reactions from the Christian plan, bear others further, quite they shun, a God to name or cite a man. Save Greek heroical Adon, 'tis Plato's aristocratic tone. All recognition they forego of evil. Supercilious skim, with spurious wing of seraphim. The last abyss, freemen avow. Belief in right divine of might. Yet spurn it kings, this is the light. Divine the darkness, mark the way, the revolution whose first mode, ere yet the maniacs overrode, despite the passion of the dream, events no disrespect for God. Mark how in our denuding day, even with the masses as would seem, it tears the fig leaf quite away. Contrast these incidents, the Paris mob of '89, haggard and bleeding with a throb, burst along Tuileries, and shrine of chapel there. They saw the cross, and him thereon. Ah, bleeding man, the people's friend, thou bleedest for us. Who here bleed too? Ragged they ran. They took the crucifix and van. They put it up, marched with drum and psalm, and throned it in their Notre Dame. But yesterday, how did they then? In new uprising of the red, the offspring of those Tuileries men, they made a close stand of the cross before the church, and on that head, which bowed for them, could wanton toss the sword belt while the gibing sped, transcended rebel angels. Woe to us without a God, 'tis woe.
Such earnestness, such wear and tear, and man but a thin gossamer. So here the priest aside then turned, and starting, List, the vesper bell? Nay, nay, the hour is past, but oh, he must have supped, Don Hannibal, ere now. Come, friends, and shall we go? This hot discussion let it stand, and cool, tomorrow we'll remand. Not yet, I pray, said Rolf, a word, and turned toward Unger. Be adjured, and tell us if for earth may be in ripening arts no guarantee of happy sequel. Arts are tools, but tools, they say, are to the strong. Is Satan weak? Weak is the wrong? No blessed augury overrules your art's advance in faith's decay. You are but drilling the new Hun whose growl even now can some dismay. Vindictive in his heart of hearts, he schools him in your minds and marts, a skilled destroyer. But need own that portent does in no degree westward impend across the sea. Over there, and do ye not forebode, against pretenses void or weak, the impieties of progress speak? What say these in effect to God? How profits it? And who art thou that we should serve thee? Of thy ways no knowledge we desire, new ways we have found out, and better. Go, depart from us, we do erase thy sinecure. Behold, the sun stands still no more in Ajalon. Depart from us. And if he do, and that he may, the Scripture says, is aught betwixt ye and the hells? For he, nor in irreverent view, 'tis he distills that savour true which keeps good essences from taint. Where he is not, corruption dwells, and man and chaos are without restraint. Oh, you do but generalize in void abstractions. Hypothesize, if be a people which began without impediment, or let from any ruling which foreran, even striving all things to forget but this, the excellence of man left to himself, his natural bent, his own devices and intent, and if, in satire of the heaven, a new world have been given for stage whereon to deploy the event, if such a people be, well, one hears the kettle drums of hell. Exemplary act awaits its place in drama of the human race. Is such act certain? Rolf here ran. Not much is certain. God is. Man, the human nature, the divine, hath been both proved by many a sign. 'Tis no astrologer and star. The world has now so old become, historic memory goes so far backward through long defiles of doom. Whoso consults it honestly, that mind grows prescient in degree, for man, like God, abides the same always, through all variety of woven garments to the frame. Yes, God is God, and men are men forever and for aye. What then? There's circumstance, there's time, and these are charged with store of latencies still working in to modify. For mystic text that you recall, dilate upon, and e'en apply, although I seek not to decry, theology's scarce practical. But leave this, the new world's the theme, here to oppose your dark extreme, since an old friend is good at need. To an old thought I'll fly, pray heed. Those waste weirs which the new world yields to inland freshets, the free vents supplied to turbid elements, the vast reserves, the untried fields, these long shall keep off and delay the class war, rich and poor man fray of history. From that alone can serious trouble spring. Even that itself this good result may own, the first firm founding of the state. Here ending with a watchful air, inquisitive, Rolf waited him. And Unger, true heart do ye bear in this discussion? Or but trim to draw my monomania out, for monomania past doubt some of ye deem it. Yet I'll on. Yours seems a reasonable tone, but in the new world things make haste. Not only men, the state lives fast. Fast breeds the pregnant eggs and shells, the slumberous combustibles, sure to explode. 'Twill come, 'twill come. One demagogue can trouble much. How of 100,000 such? And universal suffrage lent to back them with brute element overwhelming? What shall bind these seas of rival sharp communities unchristianized? Yea, but 'twill come. What come? Your 30 years of war. Should fortune's favorable star avert it? Fortune? Nay, 'tis doom. Then what comes after? Spasms but tend ever at last to quiet. No, whatever happened in the end, be sure 'twill yield to one and all new confirmation of the fall of Adam. Sequel may ensue, indeed, whose germs one now may view, myriads playing pygmy parts, debased into equality. In glut of all material arts, a civic barbarism may be, man disennobled, brutalized by popular science, atheized into a smatterer. Oh, yet knowing all self need to know in self's base little fallacy, dead level of rank commonplace, an Anglo-Saxon China see, may on your vast plains shame the race in the dark ages of democracy. America! Instilled a state on him half-brother and co-mate in silence, and with vision dim, Rolf, Vine, and Clarel gazed on him. They gazed, nor one of them found heart to upbraid the crochet of his smart, bethinking them whence soul it came, though birthright he renounced in hope, their sanguine country's wonted claim. Nor dull they were in honest tone to some misgivings of their own. They felt how far beyond the scope of elder Europe's saddest thought might be the new world's sudden brought in youth to share old age's pains, to feel the arrest of hope's advance, and squandered last inheritance, and cry, to terminus build fanes, Columbus ended earth's romance, no new world to mankind remains.
Canto 22 of Wickedness, the Word. Since for the charity they knew, none cared the exile to upbraid, or further breast, while yet he threw, in silence that oppressive weighed, the after influence of his spell, the priest in light disclaimer said, to Rolf apart, the dagger icicle draws blood, but give it sun, you mean his mood, his accident would melt away in fortune's favorable ray. But if 'tis happiness he lacks, why let the gods warm all cold backs with that good sun, but list, invent, of thought abrupt the malcontent. What incantation shall make less the ever up-bubbling wickedness. Is this fount nature's? Under guard, asked Vine. Is wickedness the word? The right word, yes, but scarce the thing is there conveyed, for one need know, wicked has been the tampering. With wickedness the word, even so? Aye, ridicule's light sacrilege has taken off the honest edge, quite turned aside, perverted all, that Saxon term and scriptural, restored to the incisive wedge. What means it, then, this wickedness? Unger regarded him with look of steady search, and wilt thou brook? Thee leaves it whole, this wickedness? Might it retake true import well, means not default nor vulgar vice, nor Adam's lapse in paradise, but worse, 'twas this evoked the hell, gave in the conscious soul's recess, credence to Calvin, what's implied in that deep utterance decried, which Christians labely confess. Be born anew? Ah, overstate, thou dost, the priest sighed. But look there, no jarring theme may violate yon tender evening sky. How fair these olive orchards see the sheep mild drift toward the folds of sleep. The blessed nature still her glance returns to love she well deserves. From hearts that with the stars advance, each heart that in the goal believes. Unger, though nettled as might be at these bland substitutes and plea, by him accounted so, yet sealed, his lips in fine all seemed to yield, with one consent a truce to talk. But Clarel, who since that 1 hour of unreserve on Saba's tower, less relish Derwent's pleasant walk, of myrtles hardly might remain, uninfluenced by Unger's vein, if man in truth be what you say, and such the prospects for the clay, and outlook of the future cease. What's left us but the senses sway? Sinner sin out life's petty lease. We are not worth the saving, nay, for me if thou speak true, but yet there gleams one beckoning star, so near the horizon judge I right, that 'tis of heaven, but wanes the light, the evening angelus is rolled, they rise and seek the convent's fold. Canto 23, Derwent and Rolf. There as they win, Derwent his arm, demure and brotherly and grave, slips into Rolf's a bond we have. We lock, we symbolize it, see. Yes, you and I, but he, and checked himself as under warm emotion. Rolf kept still, unlike Don Hannibal through storm. Has passed, yet does his sunshine strike. But Unger, clouded man, no balm he'll find in that unhappy vein. Pausing, awaiting Rolf again, Rolf held his peace, but grant indeed his strictures just how few will heed. The hippopotamus is tough, well bucklered two behind, enough. Man has two sides, keep on the bright. Two sides imply that one's not right, so that won't do wit, nay truth. Sententious are ye pithy sooth. Yet quicken now that Rolf began to find a tongue he sprightlier ran. As for his Jeremiad spells, shall these the large hope countermand? The worlds outlive the oracles, and the people never will disband. Stroll by my hedgerows in the June, the chirruping quite spoils his tune. I birds, said Rolf, nor more would own, but look to hold the censor tone. One need be qualified, is he? He's wise, too vehemently wise. His factitious memories tyrannize, and rest the judgment in degree. Perchance but come shall we accord credentials to that homely sword he wears. Would it had more of grace, but 'tis in serviceable case. Right, war's his business. Business, say you, resenting the unhandsome word. Unsay it quickly, friend, I pray you. Fine business, driving men through fires to Hades at the bidding blind of heaven knows whom, but now I mind. In this case, 'tis the Turk that hires a Christian for that end. May be, said Rolf, and pretty business too. Is war for one who did instill so much concern for Lincoln Hugh, ground up by mammon in the mill, or was it rhetoric? May be, said Rolf, and let me hint, may be you're curt today, But yes, I see, your countryman he is. Well, well, that's right, you're right, no more I'll dwell. Your countryman, and yes, at heart, rather you sidled toward his part. Though playing well the foil pardee, oh now you stare, no need a trick, to deal your dullish mood a prick. But mind you, though some things you said, by Jordan lounging in the shade, when our discourse so freely ran, but whatsoever reserves be yours, touching your native clime and clan, and whatsoever his thought abjures still when he's criticized by one, not of the tribe, not of the zone, chivalric still, though doggedly, you stand up for a countryman. I like your magnanimity. And silent pressed the enfolded arm, and he would so transmit a charm along the nerve which might ensure, however cynic challenge ran, faith genial in at least one man, fraternal in love's overture.
Twilight. Over the river in gloaming, ah, still do ye plain? Dove, dove in the mangroves, how dear is thy pain! Sorrow, but fondled, reproaches that never upbraid, spite the passion, the yearning of love unrepaid. Teach me, oh teach me thy cadence, that Inez may thrill with the bliss of the sadness, and love have his will. Through twilight of mild evening pale, as now returning slow they fare, in dubious keeping with the dale and legends, floating came that air from one invisible in shade, singing and lightly sauntering on toward the cloisters. Pause they made. But he a lateral way had won, viewless he passed, as might a wave rippling, which doth a frigate lave at anchor in the midnight road. Clarel a fleeting thought bestowed, unkenned to thee what thoughts belong, announced by such a tropic song.
Clarel, A Poem and Pilgrimage in the Holy Land by Herman Melville. Part 4, Canto 25, The Invitation. Returned to harbor, Derwent sought his Mexic friend, and him he found at home in by-place of a court of private kind, some tools around, and planks and joiner's stuff, and more, with little things and odds and ends, conveniences which ease commends unto some plain old bachelor. And here indeed one such a stay at whiles did make, a placid friar, a sexton gratis in his way, when some poor brother did require the last fraternal offices. This funeral monk, now much at ease, uncowled, upon a workbench sat, lit by a greenish eastern lamp, with crossbones baked thereon for stamp, behind him placed upon a mat, engaged in gossip, old men's chat, with the limb-lopped eld of Mexico, who better to sustain him so on his one leg, had niched him all in one of some strange coffins there, a lean and open by the wall like sentry boxes. Take a chair, Don Derwent. No, I mean, yes, take a coffin. Come, be sociable. Don Hannibal, what see I? Well, for pity's sake. Hey, this is Brother Placido, and we are talking of old times. For learn thou that in Mexico first knew he matins and the chimes. But come, get in, there's nothing else. 'Tis easy, here one lazy dwells, almost as in a barber's chair. See now, I lean my head. Ah, yes, but I don't feel the weariness. Thanks. No, I the bench prefer. Good Brother Placido, I'm glad you find a countryman. And so for little time discourse he made, but presently the monk away being called, proposed that they should go, he and Don Hannibal the Grey, and in refectory sit down, that talk might more convenient run. The others through the courts diverge, till all to cots conducted fair, where reveries in slumber merge, while lulling steals from many a cell a bee-like buzz of bedside prayer. Night in the hive monastical. And now, not wantonly designed, like lays in grove of Daphne's sung, but helping to fulfill the peace which in these cantos find release, appealing to the museful mind. A satyr's chord is strung.
In adolescence thrilled by hope, which fain would verify the gleam and find, if destiny concur, how dwells upon life's horoscope youth, always an astrologer, forecasting happiness, the dream. Slumber interred them, but not all, for so it chanced that Clarel's cell was shared by one who did repel the poppy. 'Twas a prodigal, yet pilgrim too in casual way, as seen within the grots that day, but only seen, no more than that. In years he might be Clarel's mate. Not talkative, he half reclined in reverie of dreamful kind, or might the fable, the romance be tempered by experience? For ruling under spell serene, a light precocity is seen. That mobile face, voluptuous air, no northern origin declare, but southern, where the nations bright, the costumed nations circled be, in garland round a tideless sea, eternal in its fresh delight. Nor less he owned the common day, his avocation not, in sooth, a toy of mammon, but the ray and fair aureola of youth. Deific makes the prosiest clay. From reverie now by Clarel won, he brief his story entered on. A native of the banks of Rhone, he travelled for a Lyon house, which dealt in bales luxurious, detained by chance at Jaffa Grey. Rather than let ripe hours decay, he'd run o'er in a freak of fun green Sharon to Jerusalem, and thence not far to Bethlehem. Thy silvery voice, irreverent one, 'twas musical, and Clarel said, greatly I err, or thou art he who singing along the hillside sped at fall of night. And heard you me? 'Twas sentimental, to be sure, a little Spanish overture, a tombe air which months ago a young Peruvian let flow. Locked friends we were, he's gone home now. To Clarel 'twas a novel style and novel nature, and a while mutely he dwelt upon him here, earnest to know how the most drear solemnity of Judah's glade affect might such a mind. He said something to purpose, but he shied one essay more, whereat he cried, Amigo! Favored lads there are, born under such a lucky star. They weigh not things too curious, see, albeit conforming to their time and usages thereof and clime. Well, mine's that happy family. The student faltered, felt annoy, absorbed in problems ill-defined. Am I too curious in my mind, and baffled in the fain employ, foregoing many an easy joy? That thought he hurried from, and so unmindful in perturbed estate of that light intimation late, he said, on hills of dead Judea, wherever one may faring go, he dreams, fit place to set the bier of Jacob. Brought from Egypt's Med, here's Atad's threshing floor. Indeed? Scarce audible was that in tone, nor Clarel heard it, but went on. 'Tis Jephthah's daughter holds the height, she's the muse here, but I pray, confess to Judah's mournful sway. He held his peace. You grant the blight? No boulevards? Do other lands show equal ravage you've beheld? Oh, yes, and eyed his emerald in ring. But here a god commands, a judgment dooms. You that gainsay? Uplooked he quick, then turned away, and with a shrug gave mute sign that here the theme he would decline. But Clarel urged. As in despair the other turned, invoked the air. Was it in such talk, Don Ravenna? We dealt in Seville, I and you? No, chat of love while and duenna and sea manto in Peru. Ah, good Lameno, dear amigo, what times were ours. The holidays flew. Life, a revel and clear allegro. But home thou art gone, pity, but true. At bursts so lyrical, yet given not all without some mock in leaven, once more did Clarel puzzled sit, but rallying in spite of it, continued, Surely now 'tis clear that in the aspect of Judea, my friend, it is just naught to me. Why so pertinacious be? Refrain. Here, turning light away, as quitting so the theme, how gay Damascus, orchard of a town, not yet she's heard the tidings, though. Tidings? Tidings of long ago, Isaiah's dark burden, malison, of course, to be perpetual fate, bat, serpent, screech owl, and all that. But truth is grace and pleasure there, in Abana and Pharfar's streams, O shady haunts, O sherbert air, so twine the place in odorous dreams, how may she think to mope and moan the news not yet been got to town that she's a ruin? Oh, 'tis pity, for she is earth's senior city. Pray, who was he, that man of state, whose footman at Elisha's gate loud rapped? The name has slipped. Howe'er, that Damascene maintained it well. We've better streams than Israel, yea, fairer waters. Wheatless here Clarel betrayed half-cleric tone. Naaman, you mean? Poor leper one, 'twas Jordan healed him. As you please, and hereupon the Leonese, capricious or inferring late that he had yielded up his state to priggish inroad, gave mute sign 'twere well to end. But Palestine, insisted Clarel, do you not concede some strangeness to her lot? Amigo, how you persecute, you all but tempt one to refute these stale megrims. You of the West, what devil has your hearts possessed you can't enjoy? Ah, dear Ravenna, with talk of Donna and Duenna, you came too from that hemisphere, but freighted with quite other cheer. No, pedant, no. Then changing free, laughed with a light audacity. Well, me for one, Dame Judah here don't much depress. She's not austere. Nature has lodged her in good zone, the true wine zone of Noah. The Cape yields no such bounty of the grape. Hence took King Herod festal tone. Else why the tavern Custer gilt hang out before that fane he built the second temple? Catching thus a buoyant frolic impetus, he bowled along. Herewith agrees the ducat of the Maccabees, graved with the vine. Methinks I see the spies from Eshcol, full of glee, trip back to camp with clusters swung from jolting pole on shoulders hung. Cheer up, 'twill do, it needs befit. Lo ye, behold the fruit of it. And tell me, does not Solomon's harp, oh, that it should have taken warp in end, confirm the festa? Here, thy white neck is like ivory. I feed among thy lilies dear. Stay with me, flagons, comfort me with apples. Thee I would enclose. Thy twin breasts are as two young roes. Clarel protested, yet as one part lamed in candor, and took tone in formal wise. Nay, pardon me, but you misdeem it. Solomon's song is allegoric, needs must be. Proof, pray, if 'tis not too long. Why, Saint Bernard. Who? Saint Bernard? Never that knight for me left card. No, Saint Bernard. 'Twas he of old the songs he'd import first unrolled, confirmed in every after age. The chapter headings on the page of modern Bibles in that song attest his rendering and prolong a mystic burden. So too the Bonze's Hafiz rhyme construe, which lauds the grape of Shiraz. See, they can't that in this frolic fire Some bed-rid faker would aspire in foggy symbols. Me, oh me, what stuff of Levite and divine! Come, look at straight things more in line. Blue eyes or black, which like you best? Your belladonna, how's she dressed? 'Twas very plain this sprightly youth little suspected the grave truth that he with whom he thus made free a student was, a student late of reverend theology. Nor Clarel was displeased thereat. The other now, there is no tress can thrall one like a Jewess's. A Hebrew husband, Hebrew wed, is wondrous faithful, it is said, which needs be true. For I suppose as bees are loyal to the rose, so men to beauty. Of his girls, on which did the brown Indian king Ahasuerus shower his pearls? Why, Esther, Judah wore the ring, and Nero, captain of the world, his arm about a Jewess curled, bright spouse Poppaea. And with good will some Christian monarchs share the thrill in palace, kneeling low before ground Judah, like those knobs of yore. These Hebrew witches, well a day of Jeremiah, what reck they? Clarel looked down. Was he depressed? The prodigal resumed, Earth's best, earth's loveliest portrait, daintiest, reveals Judean grace and form. Urbino's ducal mistress fair, I, Titian's Venus, golden warm. Her lineage languishes in air mysterious as the unfathomed sea. That grave, deep Hebrew coquetry, there by Bathsheba David won in Bath a purposed bait. Have done! Blushing, the cuticles but thin. Blushing, yet you my mind would win. Priests make a goblin of the Jew. Shares he not flesh with me, with you? What wind was this? And yet it swayed even Clarel's cypress. He delayed all comment, gazing at him there. Then first he marked the clustering hair, which on the bright and shapely brow at middle part grew slantly low. Rich, tumbled, chestnut hood of curls, like to a Polynesian girl's, who inland, eloping with her lover, the deacon magistrates recover, with sermon and black bread reprove, who fed on berries and on love. So young, thought Clarel, yet so knowing, with much of dubious at the heart, yet winsome in the outward showing. With whom, with what hast thou thy part? In flaw upon the student's dream, a wafture of suspicion stirred. He spake. The Hebrew, it would seem, you study much. You have averred more than most Gentiles well may glean in voyaging mere from scene to scene of shifting traffic. Irksomeness here vexed the other's light address, but ease assuming, gay, he said, Oh, in my wanderings, why, I've met among all kinds, Hebrews well-read, and some nor dull nor bigot-bred. Yes, I pick up, nor all forget. So sang, and as to be rid of further prosing, he undid his vesture, turned him, smoothed his cot. Late, late needs sleep, though sleep's a sot. A word, cried Clarel, bear with me, just nothing strange at all you see touching the Hebrews and their lot? Recumbent here. Why, yes, they share that oddity the gypsies air. About them why not make ado? The Parsees are an odd tribe too, dispersed, no country, and yet hold by immemorial rights, we're told. Amigo, do not scourge me on. Put up your monkish thong. Pray, pardon now. By peep of sun take horse I must, good night with song. Lights of Shushan, if your urn mellow shed the opal ray, to delude one, damsels, turn, wherefore tarry, why betray? Drop your garlands and away, leave me phantoms that but feign, sting me not with inklings vain. But if magic none prevail, mocking an untrue romance, let your paradise exhale odors and enlink the dance, and ye rosy feet advance till ye meet morn's ruddy hours, unabashed in Shushan's bowers. No more they slept. A spell came down, and Clarel dreamed and seemed to stand betwixt a Shushan and a sand. The Lyonnaise was lord of one, the desert did the Tuscan own, the pale pure monk. A zephyr fanned, it vanished, and he felt the strain of clasping arms which would detain his heart from such ascetic range. He woke. 'Twas day, he was alone. The Lyonnaise being up and gone, vital he knew organic change, or felt at least that change was working. A subtle innovator lurking. He rose, arrayed himself, and won the roof to take the dawn's fresh air, and heard a ditty, and looked down. Who singing rode so debonair? His cellmate, flexible young blade, mounted in rear of cavalcade, just from the gate, in rhythmic way, switching a light malacca gay. Rules, who rules? Fools the wise, makes wise the fools. Every ruling overrules. Who the dame that keeps the house, provides the diet, and oh so quiet, brings all to pass, the slyest mouse. Tell it me, Signora Nature, who but she?
Canto 27 by Parapet. Well, may ye gaze, what's good to see, better than Adam's humanity. When genial lodge such spell is given, it lured the staid grandees of heaven. Though biased in their souls divine, much to one side the feminine. He is the pleasantest small fellow. It was the early rising priest, who up there in the morning mellow had followed Clarel, not the least of pleasures here which I have known. Is meeting with that laxer one. We talked below, but all the while my thoughts were wandering away, though never once mine eyes did stray. He did so pleasingly beguile to keep them fixed upon his form. Such harmony pervades his warm, soft outline. Why now what a stare of incredulity you speak from eyes. But it was some such fair young sinner in the time antique, suggested to the happy Greek, his form of Bacchus, the sweet shape. Young Bacchus, mind ye not the old. The Egyptian ere he crushed the grape, but how? And homesick are you? Come, what's in your thoughts, pray? Wherefore, mum, so derwent though but illy sped, Clarel declining to be led, or cheered, nor less in covert way, that talk might have an after sway. Beyond the reverie which ran, half-heated, now or dim, this man, may Christian true such temper wish. His happiness seems paganish.
The Lyonnaise had joined a train whereof the man of scars was one whose office led him further on, and barring longer stay. Farewell he overnight had said, ere cell he sought for slumber. Brief the word, no hand he grasped, yet was he stirred, despite his will, in heart at core. 'Twas countrymen he here forsook, he felt it, and his aspect wore in the last parting that strange look of one enlisted for sad fight upon some desperate dark shore, who bids adieu to the civilian, returning to his clubhouse bright, in city cheerful with the million. But nature never heedeth this, to nature nothing is amiss. It was a morning full of vent and bustle, other pilgrims went. Later, accoutred in array, Don Hannibal and party sate in saddle at the convent gate, for Hebron bound. Ah, well a day, I'm bolstered up here, tucked away, my spare spar lashed behind, ye see, this crutch for scepter, come to me, embrace me, my dear friend, and leant. I'm off for Mamre, under oak of Abraham I'll pitch my tent, perchance far from the battle's smoke. Good friars and friends, behold me here, a poor one-legged pioneer. I go, I march, I am the man in forefront of the limping van of refluent emigration. So farewell, Don Derwent, Placido, farewell, and God bless all and keep. Start, dragoman, come, take your sheep to Hebron. One among the rest attending the departure there was Clarel. Unto him, oppressed in travail of transition rare, scarce timely in its unconstraint, was the droll Mexican's quirkish air and humorous turn of hintings quaint. The group dispersed. Pleased by the hill and vale, the minster, grot, and vine, hardly the pilgrims found the will to go, and such fair scene decline. But not less Bethlehem avow negative grew to him whose heart, swayed by love's nearer magnet now, would fain without delay depart. Yet comradeship did still require that some few hours need yet expire. Restive, he sallied out alone, and ere long place secluded won, and there a well. The spot he eyed, for fountains in that land being rare, attention fix. And yes, he sighed, weighing the thing, though everywhere this vicinage quite altered be, the well of Jesse's son I see, for this in parched Adullam's lair, how sore he yearned. Ah me, that one would now upon me wait with that sweet water by the gate. He stood. But who will bring to me that living water, which who drinks he thirsteth not again? Let be, a thirst that long may anguish thee, too long ungratified, will die. But whither now, my heart? Wouldst fly each thing that keepeth not the pace of common uninquiring life? What? Fall back on clay commonplace? Yearnest for peace so? Sick of strife? Yet how content thee with routine worldly? How mix with tempers keen and narrow like the knife? How live at all, if once a fugitive from thy own nobler part, though pain be portion inwrought with the grain? But here, in fair accosting word, a stranger's happy hail he heard, descending from a vineyard nigh. He turned, a pilgrim pleased his eye, a Muscovite, late seen by shrine, good to behold, fresh as a pine, elastic tall, complexion clear as dawn, in frosty atmosphere rose-tinged. They greet. At once, to reach accord, the Russian said, Sit here, you sojourn with the Latin set, I with the Greeks, but well we're met, all's much the same, many waves, one beach. I'm mateless now, one and but one I've taken to, and he's late gone. You may have crossed him, for indeed he tarried with your Latin breed, while here, a juicy little fellow, a seckle pear, so small and mellow. We shared a cell last night. Ye did, and doubtless into chat ye slid. The theme now, I'm curious here. Judea, the Jews. With heightened air the Russ rejoined, and tell me, pray, who broached the topic, he? No, I and Cherry. He in grudged reply at first, but afterward gave way. Indeed, the Russ with meaning smiled, but further, did he aught revile? The Jews, he said, were misconceived, much too he dropped, which quite bereaved the Scripture of its runic spell. But runic, said I, that's not well, I alter sure. Not marking here Clarel in his self-taxing cheer, but full of his own thoughts in clue. Right, I was right, the other cried, evade he cannot, no, nor hide. Learn he who whiled the hour for you, his race supplied the theme, a Jew. Clarel leaped up, and can it be some vague suspicion peered in me? I sought to test it, and he, nay, now I mind me of a stir of color quick. And might it touch? And paused, then as in slight demur, his cast of Hebrew is not much. Enough to badge him. Very well, but why should he the badge repel? Our Russian sheep still hate the mark. They try to rub it off, nor cease on hedge or briar to leave the fleece in telltale tags. Well, much so he, averse to Aaron's cipher dark and mystical. Society is not quite Catholic, you know, retains some prejudices yet, likes not the singular, and so he'd melt in, nor be separate, exclusive. And I see no blame nor rare thing is it in French Jew cast among strangers, traveling too, to cut old grandsire Abraham as out of mode. I talked ere you with this our friend. Let me avow my late surmise is surety now. They strolled and parted, and amain confirmed the student felt the reign of reveries vague, which could yet mar, crossed by a surging element, surging while aiming at content. So combs the billow ere it breaks upon the bar. It was the day preceding Lent, Shrove Tuesday named in English old, forefathers English, and content some yet would tarry to behold the initiatory nocturne rite. 'Twas the small hour, as once again, and final now in mounted plight, they curve about the Bethlehem urn, or vine-clad hollow of the swain. And Clarel felt in every vein, at last, Jerusalem! 'Twas thence they started, thither they return, rounding the waste circumference. Now Bellex in his reverie light rolls up and down those guineas bright, whose minted recompense small chink. In pouch of sash when travels shrink of end is won. Gelia in face wears an abstraction, lit by grace which governed hopes of rapture lend. On coins his musings likewise bend, the starry sequins woven fair into black tresses, but an air considerate and prudent reigns. For his the love not vainly sure, 'tis passion deep of man mature, for one who half a child remains. Yes, underneath a look sedate, what throbs are known. But desolate upon the pilgrims strangely fall eclipses heavier far than come to hinds, which after carnival return to toil and querulous home. Revert did they? In mind recall their pilgrimage? Yes, summit all? Could Siddim haunt them? Sabba's bay? Did the deep nature in them say, two are missing, laid away in deserts twin? They let it be, nor spake. The candor of the heart shrank from suspected counterpart. But one there was, and Clarel, he who in his aspect free from cloud, here caught a gleam from source unspied, as cliff may take on mountainside. When there one small brown cirque ye see, lit up in mole, how mellowly, day going down in sombre shroud, October pall, but tell the vein of new emotion, inly held, that so the long contention quelled, languor and indecision, pain, was it abrupt resolve, a strain wiser than wisdom's self might teach? Yea, now his hand would boldly reach and pluck the nodding fruit to him, fruit of the tree of life. If doubt spin spider-like her tissue out and make a snare in reason dim, why hang a fly in flimsy web? One thing was clear, one thing in sooth, stays not the prime of June or youth. At flood that tide makes haste to ebb. Recurred one mute appeal of Ruth, now first aright construed, he thought. She seemed to fear for him, and say, Ah, tread not, sweet, my father's way, in whom this evil spirit wrought and dragged us hither where we die. Yes, now would he forsake that road, alertly now and eager high to dame and daughter where they trod the Dolorosa, quick depart with them and seek a happier sky. Warblings he heard of home in heart, responded to by duty's hymn. He, late but weak, felt now each limb in strength how buoyant, but in truth was part caprice, sally of youth. What pulse was this with burning beat? Whence the passion that could give feathers to thought, yea, Mercury's feet? The Leonese to sense so dear, nor less from faith a fugitive, had he infected Clarel here? But came relapse. What end may prove? Ah, almoner to Saba's dove, ah, bodeful text of hermit rhyme, but what? Distrust the trustful eyes? Are the sphered breasts full of mysteries which not the maiden's self may know? May love's nice balance, finely slight, take tremor from fulfilled delight? Can nature such a doom dispense as, after ardor's tender glow, to make the rapture more than pall with evil secrets in the sense, and guile whose bud is innocence, sweet blossom of the flower of gall? Nay, nay, ah, God, keep far from me cursed manes and the Manichae. At large here life proclaims the law, unto embraces myriads draw through sacred impulse. Take thy wife, venture, and prove the soul of life, and let fate drive. So he the while in shadow from the ledges thrown, as down the Bethlehem hill they file, abreast upon the plain anon advancing. Far in upland spot a light is seen in Ramah paling, but Clarel sped and heeded not, at least recalled not Rachel wailing. Aside they win a fountain clear, the cistern of the kings, so named because, as vouched, the Magi here watered their camels, and reclaimed the ray brief hid. Ere this they passed, Clarel looked in, and there saw glassed down in the wave one mellow star. Then glancing up, beheld afar, enisled serene, the orb itself, apt auspice here for journeying elf. And now those skirting slopes they tread, which devious bar the sunken bed of Hinnom. Thence uplifted shone in hauntedness the deicide town, faint silvered. Gates, of course, were barred, but at the further eastern one, St. Stephen's, there the turbaned guard, to Belix known, at whispered word would ope. Thither, the nearer way by Jeremy's grot, they shun that ground, for there an Ottoman camp's array deters. Through Hinnom now they push their course round Zion by the glen, toward Rogel, whither shadowy rush, and where, at last, in cloud convene, ere one, they sweep to gloomier hush, those two black chasms which enfold Jehovah's height. Flanking the well, Ophel they turn, and gain the dell of Shaveh. Here the city old, fast locked in torpor, fixed in blight, no hum set forth, revealed no light, though facing it, cliff-hung Siloam, sepulchral hamlet, showed in tomb a twinkling lamp. The valley slept, obscure, in monitory dream oppressive, roofed with awful skies, whose stars like silver nail-heads gleam, which stud some lid over lifeless eyes.
Clarel, A Poem and Pilgrimage in the Holy Land, by Herman Melville. Part 4, Canto 30. The Valley of Decision. Delay! Shall flute from forth the gate issue to warble welcome here, upon this safe returning wait in gratuation? And for cheer, when in they gain, there shall they see the doorpost wreathed? Howe'er it be, through Clarel a revulsion ran, such as may seize debarking man, first hearing on Coquimbo's ground that subterranean sullen sound which dull foreruns the shock. His heart, in augury fair arrested here, upbraided him, fool, and didst part from Ruth? Strangely a novel fear obtruded, petty, and yet worse, and more from reason too averse, than that recurrent haunting buyer, molesting him erewhile. And yet it was but irritation, fret, misgiving that the lines he writ upon the eve before the start for Siddim failed or were unfit, came short of the occasion's tone, to leave her in grief's smart, to leave her, the stricken one, now first to feel full force of it. Away! To be but there, vain goadings, yet of love true part. But then the pledge with letter sent, though but a trifle, still might bear a token in dumb argument, expressive more than words. With knee straining against the saddle brace, he urges on, till near the place of Hebrew graves a light they see moving, and figures dimly trace some furtive strange society. Yet nearer as they ride, the light shuts down. Abide, enjoin the Druze. Waylayers these are none but Jews, or I mistake, who here by night have stolen to do grave diggers' work. During late outbreak in the town, the bigot in the baser Turk was so inflamed, some Hebrews dread assault, even here among their dead. Abide a space, let me ride on. Up pushed he, spake, allayed the fright of them who had shut down the light at sound of comers. Close they draw, advancing, lit by fan-shaped rays shot from a small dark lantern's jaw, presented pistol-like. They saw mattocks and men, in outline dim on either ominous side of him, from whom went forth that point of blaze. Resting from labor, each one stays his implement on gravestones old. New dug between these they behold two narrow pits, and, nor remote, twin figures on the ground they note, folded in cloaks. And who rest there? Rolf sidelong asked. Our friends, have care, replied the one that held in view the lantern, slanting it a shift, plainer disclosing them, and, too, a broidered scarf, love's first chance gift. The students, which how well he knew, binding one mantle's slender span. With piercing cry as one distraught, down from his horse leapt Clarel, ran, and hold of that cloak instant caught, and bared the face. Then, like a man shot through the heart, but who retains his posture, rigid he remains, the mantle's border in his hand, his glazed eyes unremoved. The band of Jews, the pilgrims, all look on, shocked or amazed. But speech he won. No, yes, enchanted here? Her name? Ruth, Nathan's daughter, said a Jew, who kenned him now, the youth that came oft to the close. But thou, forbear, the dawn's at hand, and haste is due. See, by her side 'tis Agar there. Ruth, Agar, art thou God? But ye, all swims, and I but blackness see. How happen it? Speak! The fever, grief, 'twere hard to tell, was no relief. And ye, your tribe, 'twas ye denied me access to this virgin's side in bitter trial. Take my curse. O blind, barren universe! Now am I like a bough torn down, and I must wither, cloud or sun. Had I been near, this had not been. Do spirits look down upon this scene? The message? Some last word was left for thee? No, none. The life was reft sudden from Ruth, and Agar died, babbling of gulls and ocean wide, out of her mind. And here's the furrow of Nathan's faith, then perish faith, 'tis perjured. Take me, death, where Ruth is gone, me thither whirl, where'er it be. Ye do outgo mad Korah. Boy, this is the dale of doom, God's last assizes. So curb thee, even if sharp grief assail, respect these precincts, lest thou know an ill. Give way, quit thou our dead, menaced another, striding out. Art thou of us? Turn thee about. Spurn, I'll endure, all spirits fled, when one fears nothing. Bear with me, yet bear. Conviction is not gone, though faith's gone. That which shall not be still ought to be. But here came on, with heavy footing, hollow herd, Hebrews, each bear rude slabs, to place athwart the bodies when interred, that earth should weigh not on the face. For coffin was there none, and all was makeshift in this funeral. Uncouthly here a Jew began to readjust Ruth's cloak. Amain did Clarel push him, and in hiss, Not thou, for me. Alone, alone, in such bride chamber to lie down. Nay, leave one hand out, like to this, that so the bridegroom may not miss to kiss it first, when soon he comes. But 'tis not she, and hid his face. They laid them in the under glooms, each pale one in her portioned place. The gravel from the bank raked down, dull sounded on those slabs of stone, grave answering grave, dull and more dull, each mass growing more, till either pit was full. As up from Kedron dumb they drew, then first the shivering Clarel knew night's damp. The martyr's port is won. Stephen's harsh grates the bolt withdrawn, and over Olivet comes on Ash Wednesday in the grey of dawn.
Stay, death, not mine the Christus wand wherewith to charge thee and command. I plead. Most gently hold the hand of her thou leadest far away. Fear thou to let her naked feet tread ashes, but let mosses sweet her footing tempt where'er ye stray. Shun Orcus, when the moonlit land be lulled, the silent meadows lone, where never any leaf is blown from lily stem in Azrael's hand. There till her love rejoin her lowly, pensive, a shade, but all her own, on honey feed her, wild and holy, or trance her with thy choicest charm. And if, ere yet the lovers free, some added dusk thy rule decree, that shadow only let it be thrown in the moon glade by the palm. Day passed, and passed a second one, a third, fourth, fifth, and bound he sate in film of sorrow without moan, abandoned in the stony strait of mutineer thrust on wild shore, hearing, beyond the roller's froth, the last dip of the parting oar. Alone, for all had left him so, though Rolfe, Vine, Derwent, each was loath, how loath to leave him or to go be first. From Vine he caught new sense developed through fate's pertinence. Friendly they tarried, blameless went. Life avaricious still demands her own and more. The world is rent with partings. But since all are gone, why lingers he, the stricken one? Why linger where no hope can be? Ask grief. Love ask. Fidelity in dog that by the course abides of shepherd fallen. Abides though autumn into winter glides, till on the mountain all is chill and snowbound, and the twain lie still. How oft through Lent the feet were led of this chastised and fasting one to neutral silence of the dead in Kedron's gulf. One morn he sate down pouring toward it from the gate, sealed and named Golden. There a tomb, erected in time's recent day, in block along the threshold lay impassable. From Omar's bloom came birds which lit nor dreamed of harm on neighboring stones. His visage calm seemed not the one which late showed play of passion's throe, but here divine no peace. Ignition in the mine announced is by the rush, the roar. These end, yet may the coal burn on. Still slumberous burn beneath the floor of pastures, where the sheep lie down. Ere long a cheerful choral strain he hears. 'Tis an Armenian train, embowered in palms they bear, which, green and shifting oft, reveal the mane of flamens tall and singers young in festal robes, a rainbow throng, like dolphins off Madeira seen, which quick the ship and shout dismay. With the blessed anthem censers sway, whose opal vapor spiral borne blends with the heaven's own azure morn of palms. For 'twas Palm Sunday bright, though thereof he, oblivious quite, knew nothing, nor that here they came in memory of the green acclaim triumphal and Hosanna roll, which hailed him on the ass's foal. But unto Clarel that bright view into a dusk reminder grew. He saw the tapers, saw again the censers, singers, and the wreath and litter of the bride of death pass through the broken fountain's lane. In treble shrill and bass how deep the men and boys he heard again the undetermined contest keep about the beer Armenian. Yet dull, in torpor dim, he knew the futile omen in review. Yet 3 more days, and leadenly from over Mary's port and arch, on Holy Thursday he the march of friars beheld, with litany filing beneath his feet, and bent with crosses craped to sacrament, down in the glenned Gethsemane. Yes, Passion Week, the altars cower, each shrine a dead, dismantled bower. But when Good Friday dirged her gloom, ere brake the morning, and each light round Calvary faded, and the tomb, what exhalations met his sight, illusion of grief's wakeful doom. The dead walked. There amid the train wan Nehemiah he saw again, with charnel beard, and Celio passed as in a dampened mirror glassed. Gleamed Mortmain pallid as wolf-bone, which bleaches where no man hath gone, and Nathan in his murdered guise, sullen, and Hades in his eyes. Poor Agar, with such wandering mien as in her last blank hour was seen, and each and all kept lonely state. Yea, man and wife passed separate, but Ruth, how estranged in face! He knew her by no earthly grace, nor might he reach to her in place, and languid vapors from them go, like thaw fogs curled from dankish snow. Where now he who helpeth us, the Comforter? Tell, Erebus.
Easter. But on the 3rd day Christ arose, and in the town he knew the rite commemorative eager goes before the hour. Upon the night between the week's last day and first, no more the Sabbath is dispersed or tenebrae. And when the day the Easter falls in calendar the same to Latin and the array of all schismatics from afar, Armenians, Greeks from many a shore, Syrians, Cots profusely pour the hymns. 'Tis like the choric gush of torrents alpine when they rush to swell the anthem of the spring. That year was now. Throughout the fane floor and arcades in double ring, about the gala of the tomb, blazing with lights behung with bloom. What childlike thousands roll the strain, the hallelujah after pain, which in all tongues of Christendom still through the ages has rehearsed that best, the outcome of the worst. Nor blame them who by lavish rite thus greet the pale victorious sun, since nature times the same delight, and rises with the emerging one. Her passion weak, her winter mood, she slips with crape from off the rood. In soft rich shadow under dome, with gems and robes repletely fine, the priests like birds Brazilian shine, and moving tapers charm the sight, enkindling the curled incense fume a dancing ray, auroral light. Burn on the hours and meet the day, the morn invites. The suburbs call the concourse to come forth, this way. Out from the gate by Stephen's wall they issue, jot the hills, and stray in bands like sheep among the rocks. And the good shepherd in the heaven, to whom the charge of these is given, the Christ, counts he there his flocks? But they at each suburban shrine grateful adore that friend benign, though chapel now and cross divine too frequent show neglected. Nay, for charities of early rains rim them about with vernal stains, forerunners of mature May, when those red flowers which so can please, Christ's blood drops named anemones, spot Ephraim and the mountain way, but heart bereft is unrepaid, though Thamus's spring in Thamus's glade invite. Then how in Joel's glen? What if dyed shawl and bodice gay make bright the black dell? What if they in distance clear diminished be to seeming cherries dropped on pall, born graveward under laden tree? The cheer so human might not call the maiden up, Christ is arisen. But Ruth, may Ruth so burst the prison? The rite supreme being ended now, their confluence here the nations part. Homeward the tides of pilgrims flow, by contrast making the walled town like a depopulated mart, more like some kirk on weekday lone, on whose void benches broodeth still the brown light from November hill. But though the freshet quiet be gone, sluggish life's wonted stream flows on.
Canto 34, Via Crucis. Some leading thoroughfares of man in wood path, track, or trail began. Though threading heart of proudest town, they follow in controlling grade, a hint or dictate nature's own, by man as by the brute obeyed. Within Jerusalem a lane, narrow nor less an artery main, though little knoweth it of den, in part suggests such origin, the restoration or repair, successive through long ages there, of city upon city tumbled, might scarce divert that thoroughfare, whose hill abideth yet unhumbled, above the valley side it meets. Pronounce its name this natural streets, the Via Crucis, even the way, tradition claims to be the one. Trod on that Friday far away, by him our pure exemplar shown. 'Tis Whitsuntide from paths without, through Stephen's gate by many a vein, convergent brought within this lane, ere sundown shut the loiterer out. As 'twere a frieze, behold the train, bowed water carriers, Jews with staves, infirm grey monks, overloaded slaves, Turk soldiers, young with homesick eyes, a bay bereaved through luxuries, strangers and exiles, Moslem dames, long veiled in monumental white, dumb from the mounds which memory claims, a half-starved vagrant Edomite, sore-footed Arab girls which toil depressed under heap of garden spoil, the patient ass with panniered urn, sour camels humped by heaven and man, whose languid necks through habit turn, for ease they hardly gain, in varied forms of fate they win, or man or animal 'tis one, cross-bearers all alike they tend, and follow slowly on. But lagging after, who is he called early every hope to test, and now at close of rarer quest finds so much more the heavier tree, from slopes whence even echoes gone. Winding he murmurs in low tone, they wire the world far under sea, they talk but never comes to me. A message from beneath the stone, dusk Olivet he leaves behind, and taking now a slender wind, vanishes in the obscure town.
Clarel. A Poem and Pilgrimage in the Holy Land by Herman Melville. Epilogue, Canto 35. If Luther's day expand to Darwin's year, shall that exclude the hope, foreclose the fear? Unmoved by all the claims our times avow, the ancient Sphinx still keeps the porch of shade. And comes despair, whom not her calm may cow, and coldly on that adamantine brow scrawls undeterred his bitter pasquinade. But Faith, who from the scrawl indignant turns, with blood-warm oozing from her wounded trust, inscribes even on her shards of broken urns the sign of the cross, the spirit above the dust. Yea, ape and angel, strife and old debate, the harps of heaven and dreary gongs of hell, science the feud can only aggravate, no umpire she betwixt the chimes and knell. The running battle of the star and clod shall run forever, if there be no God. Degrees we know, unknown in days before, the light is greater, hence the shadow more. And a tantalized and apprehensive man, appealing, wherefore ripen us to pain? Seems there the spokesman of dumb nature's train. But through such strange illusions have they passed, who in life's pilgrimage have baffled striven. Even death may prove unreal at the last, and Stoics be astounded into heaven. Then keep thy heart, though yet but ill resigned. Clarel, thy heart, the issues there but mind, that like the crocus budding through the snow, that like a swimmer rising from the deep, that like a burning secret which doth go even from the bosom that would hoard and keep, emerge thou mayst from the last whelming sea, and prove that death but routs life into victory.